Ellie stood below looking at the gift, enviously saying, "This is too much. I also want to celebrate my birthday." "Hoo-hoo, me too," Dee said. At this time, Lu Feng said to Mina, "Okay, now make your wish. This is a custom in my hometown. Just close your eyes and make a wish, then blow out the candles and your wish will come true." Everyone turned their eyes to the cake filled with strawberries, fruits, candles, so bright. Mina wondered. Wish come true. She quickly clenched her hands, closed her eyes and whispered her wish. "Then blow on it." Ellie asked curiously. "Mina, what do you wish for?" Mina said shyly. "Okay, everyone eat the cake." "Oh la la, let's eat cake." Everyone took their plates and ate the cake and teased each other. Dees took the cake and wanted to smear it on Ellie's face. Mina and Lu Feng ate the cake affectionately while looking at each other. Their eyes were passionate. Our eyes met. "I just wanted to look at you for a long, long time." Lu Feng kept his eyes on Mina, making her blush in embarrassment. "Ahem. Ha ha ha, you lose." Dees laughed loudly and said to Ellie. "You do it, you lose." At this moment, Mina looked out the window. She stretched out her arms and said cheerfully, "Master, thank you. I am very happy on this birthday." Suddenly Lu Feng slowly walked from behind and hugged Mina. The unexpected and warm hug made Mina freeze, shy and timid. Lu Feng whispered softly into Mina's ear. "Just now, what did you wish for, Mina?" Oh my god, Mina's hands timidly touched Lu Feng's hands. Her cheeks turned red, her lips turned pink as she softly said, I wish to be the young master's wife. Give birth to a lovely daughter for the young master." Mina didn't say this part, guys. Mina was just thinking in her head. Suddenly, Mina unexpectedly turned around. She hugged Lu Feng tightly and kissed him on the lips. The two people kissed more and more passionately. Both of their faces were flushed, not sure if it was because they were drunk on love or what. It must have been because they were drunk on love. They kissed so passionately. Hands clasped, hands tightly clasped. The two people entangled more passionately. The energy spread, warming both hearts. Lips touched, hearts burning. At this point, everyone appeared, lined up in a row, eyes and noses wide open, mouths agape, looking at the young couple in shock. What is this? Dees, Ellie, Vaya, and even Nicole were all staring in surprise. Little Sumi was shy and turned away, not daring to look. If they stood there looking any longer, they might faint. Let's quickly clear up the mess so the young couple can get to work. Hurry back. So, under the bright yellow candlelight, it burned like it had never burned before. The heat in the room was rising more than ever. Lu Feng gently carried Mina and placed her on the red bed that looked like a wedding bed. The candle was like, hurry up and come blow it out. I'm tired of you too. Lu Feng was embarrassed, his face was red, looking at Mina who was lying on the bed. The two fell into deep thought, looking at each other affectionately, neither of them saying anything. And then what was to come happened. The two of them sank into a passionate and sweet night of youth. Okay, let's change the scene. Back to the geographical location of Xi'an City. The kingdom that Xi'an City belongs to is called Yinglu Kingdom, with an area of about 200,000 square kilometers. This is the strongest kingdom compared to its neighbors. Xi'an City is located on the edge of the Yinglu Kingdom. The capital of the Yinglu Kingdom is Yinglu City. It is a large city with a population of about 100,000 people. Wow, we've arrived at Yinglu City. Sorrow's messenger had now arrived at the kingdom's capital. Oh my god, looking at the city, heavy snow-covered, white snow lay thick on the thin huts. People were cold, shivering, sitting scattered on the streets. The messenger looked on in amazement. He had to exclaim that, although this was the capital, it was still far inferior to the western city. In addition, you have to pay a fee to enter here. The messenger heard the pleading, pitiful sounds. Please, I beg you, I will go into the city to sell things and have money to give you right away. The guard still resolutely pushed the merchant away. He shouted, no, without paying the fee, you cannot enter the city. Seeing this scene, ordinary people could not accept it. Furthermore, speaking of this, the messenger heard two people in the alley shouting. Come on, you can do it, you will definitely do it. It was already dawn, and the messenger continued to walk through the streets of the capital. He thought, the so-called nobles here were not even as good as the common people in Taeduong City. It stinks so much, I'm used to it in the West. This place is so polluted, the streets are full of stinking garbage, it's really miserable. But, because of Darlene, all the hardships and fatigue were nothing. Just seeing Darlene would surely return my polluted soul to normal. Click, there was the sound of a wooden door opening and a voice saying, I will give it to the owner for you. Scene change, in a beautiful white room, Darlene is sitting drinking tea with her friend. The friend says, "Darlene, you really don't like your brother?" Darlene's friend Catherine is the Grand Duke's daughter, she continued. He is brave and talented, a rare breed. Take advantage of this opportunity, my good friend. Darlene, the daughter of Merchant Sorrow, sighed and replied. Don't you feel guilty saying these words? Hee, I don't want that either. But my father cut off my money. I just need to pass on the word on your behalf and I'll get the money back. Such an easy deal, if I were you, I'd do it. Darlene replied calmly. Then you accept the fourth prince's proposal, won't you have a lot of money? Laugh at him, where will all the money go? Catherine was angry, her face was arrogant. Don't mention it again. I don't want to marry him. That stupid head doesn't know anything about music. Darlene calmly advised her agitated friend. Calm down, this isn't your dukedom. Be careful, someone might hear and bring trouble upon themselves. Besides, as far as I know, the duke wouldn't agree, right? You are. Catherine continued. You are clearly younger than me, but you act so old all day. Darlene slowly put the teacup down on the table and continued. My father is not in the capital right now. If I don't mature, how can I control everything down here? And you, suddenly coming here. It's not just for chatting, right? Hee, Catherine said. You still understand me best. Catherine was overjoyed. She held the lute in her hand and showed it off to Darlene. Darlene, the instrument factory recently got this latest 4-string lute. She jumped up and showed it off again. If she could just get it, she would surprise everyone at the palace banquet next year. Darlene asked again, wondering. Oh, you don't want to buy again, do you? You have more pianos in your house than in the shop. Catherine made an okay hand gesture, indicating that she had one more. Darlene gently lifted her teacup and replied. No. Catherine pouted, her mouth wide open in disapproval. She whined. Ha? Can't you? Darlene, you are one of the 5 most talented women in this royal capital. You can't find a second one even if you search all the important trading places in this royal capital, so how could you be short of money? Darlene replied indifferently, her face expressionless. You are also one of the most talented women in this capital. There is no one in this world who can play the lute better than you. You don't need this instrument to make everyone amazed. Catherine heard and screamed. Boo-hoo, no way. Suddenly, a servant entered Darlene's room. She was holding a box. She respectfully said to Darlene. Miss, the master sent someone to bring you some things. Darlene opened the box. Catherine quickly looked into the box and exclaimed. It's a letter. And what are these? It was a letter from Darlene's father. It contained a few pink lollipops that Catherine was enjoying and shouting. Wow, they were so delicious. While Catherine was enjoying the delicious taste of the lollipops, Darlene was deep in thought reading the letter from her father. Sucking on her candy, Catherine looked at Darlene and asked. What's wrong, Darlene? Darlene hesitated for a few seconds before replying. Dad told me to take the crew to the Atlantic for a few days. Catherine was surprised. The Atlantic City? Scene changes to Taeduong City. At this time, white snow still covers all the buildings in Taeduong City. A red-haired young man raised his fist and shouted loudly. You punched me first. A purple-haired guy was not to be outdone and jumped in. It was obvious that you started the trouble first. With that, the 2 men rushed into a fistfight. The scene was chaotic and tense. These 2 people were punching each other, making Mr. Buff sigh. It's been 7 or 8 times already. Mr. Buff continued with a bored expression. It's just trivial matters, but every time they get into a fight. It turned out that Mr. Buff was reporting the situation to City Lord Lu Feng. After listening, Lu Feng asked again. Mr. Buff, where are they now? Mr. Buff answered slowly. I made them run around the western wall twice as punishment. After running, they had no energy left to fight. Lu Feng laughed happily. Well done. Don't worry, I'll think of a way to solve it. Then he thought to himself. Oh my god, I wonder if I'll survive after 2 laps around the city. When Mr. Buff left, Lu Feng started to think of a way. It was winter, people were idle and had a lot of free time. They were full of energy, so it was easy for people to cause trouble. I have a way. Ellie crossed her arms and asked the city lord Lu Feng in wonder. Young master, do you have any ideas? What do you plan to do? Lu Feng quickly prepared to leave and said to Ellie. Come with me to the research institute. Let's go. At the Research Institute in Taeduong City, the air was cold, and snow was falling heavily on the roof of the Research Institute. In the lecture room of the Research Institute, Lu Feng and Ellie were explaining to everyone about the different departments of the garment industry. Lu Feng pointed a ruler at the board. This was the textile department. Ellie listened and watched Lu Feng lecture with his head full of questions. She didn't understand what he was saying. After finishing his lecture to the textile department, Lu Feng went to the carpentry workshop. Here, the gasmasters and workers were also paying close attention to the instructions of the city lord Lu Feng. Ellie stood beside him, still full of questions and confusion. Appearing before us is a pair of bright red-orange-yellow boxing gloves. These gloves look as strong as the person using them. Lu Feng put on his gloves and punched his hands together, creating a banging sound that was pleasing to the ears. Then the Lord praised the person who made it. Well done, very good everyone. Ellie also raised her hand like Lu Feng. She asked him curiously, young master, is this used for fighting? Lu Feng explained leisurely. You could say that. This is called boxing. You'll know soon enough. The next day, in the middle of the big commercial market of Taeduong City, a crowd of people gathered like ants around a fighting arena that looked like a ring. On the stage, Nyoda and Sink were wearing red gloves. Lu Feng called them boxing gloves. Lu Feng was standing on the stage. He shouted loudly for everyone around to hear. The city lord heard that someone was very bored recently. After a full meal and nothing to do, the people had something to do. To add more entertainment, the city lord decided to hold a boxing match. The winner would also receive a prize. The words that just came out stunned the crowd below. Boxing? What is it? Is it a fight? Someone below boldly raised his hand and asked. Nyoda was a little confused when he heard the question. This is a little difficult to explain in words. Next, Sink and I will show everyone once. After saying that, Nyodai turned to Sink who was standing ready on the opposite side. His eyes were extremely focused. Very quickly the two began to fight. We took turns, he punched me and I dodged. I punched him and he blocked. Left hook. Right hook. Extremely intense, no one gives up. A boxing show to watch. Just as Sink was laughing over the success of the show, Nyodai immediately punched Sink, sending him flying out of the ring. The crowd below the stage was stunned by this scene. Their mouths were wide open in shock, and Nyoda, after winning, put his hands on his hips and said loudly. Alright, who else wants to sign up? Lu Feng stood behind him watching the scene just now. His eyes seemed to be in disbelief as he thought. Who would sign up then? Didn't he say he was just performing? Lu Feng had no choice but to step forward, patting Nyodai's shoulder with his right hand. He smiled warmly and continued to explain. Everyone, rest assured. Only civilians can register to fight each other in this match. Soldiers like Sink or Nyoda will not participate. Next, I will announce the rules and prizes of the competition. This match will select 18 contestants to compete. Third place will receive 100 copper coins. Second place will receive 10 silver coins. First prize will be 10 gold coins and an additional trophy. The crowd under the stage immediately reacted when they heard the prize money. Everyone rushed to sign up. Wow, 10 gold coins. I want to sign up. I want to sign up too. Lu Feng saw this and smiled with satisfaction. So now I declare the first Western boxing tournament officially begun. Opposite the arena, the competition banner was hung. Under the podium is the golden cup. The match has begun. Lu Feng sat on the highest stand to easily observe Saro and Tori below. Saro turned back and asked Lu Feng, Lord of the city. Whichever candidate you have your eye on, I will pay attention to that person. Lu Feng saw this and raised his hand to his chin, laughing as he analyzed. If it were me, I would find the numbers 7 and 10 quite formidable. Anyway, looking at their hairstyles, they don't look like normal people. Oh, and there's also the bald contestant number 17 wearing a cloak, he looks very strong too. After studying the rules of the game on the paper given out, Tori turned around, his eyes shining brightly and asked, Lord, I have never seen any rules and participation rates like yours. If you guess correctly from 1 to 18, you will get 1,800 silver coins. Lu Feng answered with a smile outside. That is called a sports lottery. The money collected will be donated to charity in Shiyang City. Everyone, don't take it too seriously. It's just for fun. Meanwhile, Lu Feng's face was full of danger. Tori's dreams were really beautiful. How could Tori have guessed everything so easily? Saro next to him thought for a moment and then felt refreshed. Then I'll join in too. Guessing all 18 people correctly is impossible. I'll bet on the top 3 people. Then he raised his hand and called to a man in a straw hat, with a scar on his cheek, a red shirt and blue pants, who was selling some kind of ticket to the others below. "Little Fly, this side bets." "Here," Little Fly replied. Sorrow raised a silver coin in his hand. He said he was betting on 3 people to come out on top, in no particular order, number 7, number 10, and number 17. The other spectators below, seeing Sorrow's actions, couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Oh, as expected of Mr. Sorrow, he waved his hand and got a silver coin. Little Fly had now come to Mr. Sorrow and signed his name on the betting slip. "Mr. Sorrow, have you thought about it? Each person can only bet once, and it's 1 silver coin at that. That's the maximum limit set by the lord of the city." Hearing this, Sorrow laughed heartily. "Ha ha ha, it's just for fun." Seeing his attitude, Little Fly didn't say much more. He immediately handed Mr. Sorrow 2 receipts and a box of fingerprints. "Okay, please ask Mr. Sorrow to put his fingerprints on these 2 receipts." These 2 papers, identical, Sorrow saw them and said with a bit of surprise. Little Fly held up a piece of carbon paper and explained with a smile. "That's right, thanks to the city lord's invention of this printing paper, 2 identical receipts could be made. The original was kept, and the copy could be used to redeem the prize." After hearing that, Sorrow was even more surprised, his eyes widened and his mouth gaped open. "Paper, printing paper?" Before Mr. Sorrow could react, someone else raised their hand. "Little Fly, I want to bet." "Oh, come here." Little Fly left, and Sorrow sat there for a moment, stunned. His body trembled involuntarily, causing his son sitting next to him to not understand what was going on. Sorrow seemed to realize something, excitedly turned back, and made a gesture towards Lu Feng that was no different from a proposal. Eyes full of sincerity. The tone of voice made Lu Feng sitting on the chair suddenly break out in a cold sweat. "Lord, may I ask when will the printing paper be widely sold on the market?" Lu Feng smiled wryly and raised his hands in surrender. "Well, the printing paper is still in the testing phase, it will take some time before it can be put on the market." This Sorrow, he is really sharp, Lu Feng thought to himself. Sorrow's expression on the other side was serious after hearing this, his mouth opened into a wide, businesslike smile, his hand placed on his chest, emitting a black aura from his entire body, which surprised Lu Feng. "City Lord, can't you sell me some first? The price doesn't matter, this is very important to me." As he spoke, he frowned and gritted his teeth, remembering that those foreign swindlers had previously falsified and altered the receipt, swindling me of some money and even causing me to be branded as a dishonest person. As long as I had this magical printing paper, such things would not happen again. Lu Feng saw his attitude and secretly calculated in his mind, well, he still had to cooperate with Sorrow in the future. Selling him a little now would probably be fine. Then he replied, "Okay, I will ask someone to bring a box of printing paper and a full set." "Thank you, Lord City Lord." Sorrow immediately happily thanked him profusely, and Tori beside him heard their conversation. He also heard Lu Feng agree to sell printing paper to Sorrow, also excited, "Lord City Lord, I want it too, I want it too." "Oh, the price is not cheap at all," Lu Feng crossed his arms and said solemnly. Sitting next to Lu Feng, Ellie didn't know when she fell asleep, bubbles appeared on her nose, losing all her image. No way, it needs a gold coin." Tori's face was filled with horror as he tried to guess the price, but Sorrow beside him shouted without hesitation, "Please sell me 10 boxes." Lu Feng had already compromised on the price Tori had just guessed. Oh, fine, but inwardly he was secretly happy, what the hell? The cost of the printing paper was only a few copper coins, but here it was being sold for 1 gold coin. Then Lu Feng suddenly remembered something else and added, there was also a set of notebooks that came with it. Wow, the people around cheered. The fight was still going on intensely on the stage, someone was hit and flew out of the stands causing everyone to cheer excitedly. Sorrow, having received the city lord's approval, turned his eyes back to the match. Tori was still pondering over the price. He could only hold the ticket in his hand and look at Lu Feng with longing eyes. The city lord was still immersed in the joy of making money and did not pay attention. He was still lost in thought. It's really easy for rich people to make money. It seems like the idea of opening a luxury goods store is also good. Then, sell milk tea, perfume, etc. The audience in the stands cheered loudly, causing Lu Feng to snap out of his thoughts. The results of the competition were out, Nyoda shouted loudly. The winner of the first boxing competition this time was a 76-year-old grandfather who was talented but always kept a low profile. Where was everyone's applause? Nyoda stood on the ring with both hands facing the old man with only a few strands of hair left, his legs still trembling, and declared. Next to him was a muscular man with a lump on his head, crying because he lost. Hateful, hoo-hoo. And in our stands right now, both Sorrow and Tori are still wide-eyed and open-mouthed, unable to believe the result they just heard. Huh, I guessed wrong, and they still won? Lu Feng above was still calmly thinking to himself. Boxing is all about attacking head-on to score points. When fighting a big but stupid guy, the one with the fastest movements will win. But, it was a bit hard to believe that an old man over 70 years old could win. Thinking of this, Lu Feng unconsciously made an expression that was hard to describe. What a funny story, haha. In another place, the scene that appeared was a vast mountain forest, covered in white snow. The wind blowing in gusts made people feel really cold. Below the forest was a female wolfkin beast knight named Avery, her brown cloak wrapped tightly around her body. On her back was a sword wrapped in a black cloth. Avery thought to himself as he looked at the map. Once he got through this forest, he would reach Blade City. According to intelligence, there is a fox beastman in Blade City. I hope, princess, please wait for me. Under the thick snow, Avery continued to drag his heavy steps. At Blade City, right in front of the city gate, a group of orcs were gathered to watch a noble being carried by 4 other orcs on a large wooden board. The noble had blonde hair, wore a green coat, a white fur coat, a green hat, and held a whip in his hand, shouting loudly. The city lord wants to dig a river to protect the city. He needs 300 strong and healthy men. They will eat barley porridge to work. The orcs below immediately started to make noise when they heard this, raising their hands high. Some said, my son needs barley porridge, I'll make it. Some said, me, I have the strength. All these orcs were here for food. Because he heard that work will be rewarded, he approached and surrounded the noble who had just announced, causing him to change his expression and shout, don't come too close, this bunch of trash. He couldn't speak. He raised the whip in his hand and whipped the crowd. Back off, you're so skinny, what can you do? You want to trick me to get porridge, get lost now. The beastmen, although beaten, were still trying to speak loudly because they were so hungry. Choose me, choose me. Avery stood in a hidden corner behind and saw the scene, surprised. This is Blade City. Blade City is a slave city, a place where slave traders like to go. 80% of the city's population are slaves. The city lord was only responsible for providing some drinking water and porridge, to ensure that no one starved to death, and was able to obtain a huge labor force. Okay, enough people. The blonde-haired noble with a beard that was sticking out to both sides knocked the end of his whip on the plank he was sitting on and announced, you guys quickly follow, if you're late, you don't need to come anymore. He didn't know how heavy he was, but it caused the 4 skinny beastmen around him who were carrying the plank to sweat in their faces to turn pale. Perhaps it was partly because of the cold weather that they only had thin clothes on. The beastmen slaves looked at the person leaving and some were puzzled. Yesterday they sent 100 people, today they need 300. Where did the people from yesterday come back? Were they sold? Another person said that among those who left, there were several children who died of hunger this morning. Avery stealthily jumped onto the snowy rooftops and followed the noble's group. She hid behind a wall and watched the group, thinking to herself. How strange, why didn't they enter the city? Why did they come to such a deserted place? Strangely enough, the green-hatted noble crossed his arms and shouted loudly to signal a stop. The beastmen below looked around strangely, left and right, full of questions. What are they doing here? Suddenly, an arrow shot straight into the chest of a purple-haired beastman, causing the surrounding people to change color in fear. Another noble riding a horse held a sword and slashed at the beastmen, his face filled with excitement. Kill, they want to kill us, let's run. A beastman immediately understood the situation and shouted to the people around. Ha ha ha, run quickly, otherwise it won't be fun anymore. The noble continued to ride his horse, swinging his sword and killing indiscriminately. This turned out to be their real purpose. There is no porridge or digging a river to protect them. This is just capturing beastmen for entertainment. A group of beastmen ran away. One of them begged, don't kill me, I don't need any more porridge. My son, before he could finish his sentence, was mercilessly chopped down by another noble. Ha 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 ha, these bandits are too weak. Ha ha ha, let's see how many bandits I've killed. When I get back, my father will definitely praise me for my bravery. The nobles took turns boasting about their achievements. There were beastmen corpses everywhere. Blood stained the snow, the tragic scene contrasted with the noble's mood. Avery witnessed everything that just happened. She trembled and gritted her teeth in anger. How could this damn world be so vile? How could humans be so cruel? Unable to bear it any longer, Avery immediately stood up and reached out to draw the sword behind his back. Suddenly another group of horsemen from behind galloped to a halt with great vigor. The noble turned around in surprise. Huh? What happened? The group of people who had just arrived immediately surrounded the 3 nobles who had just been brutally slaughtering, causing the 3 to turn around and look around, not understanding what was going on. The 3 nobles were quickly tied up in a pile. The blonde man didn't understand anything but still shouted loudly. What are you doing? Didn't they say that if you give him money, you can kill him freely? The black-haired man also raised his voice, showing off his power. How bold! My father is Count Pulley. You dare to tie me up? The brown-haired man echoed. That's right. What's wrong with you beastmen? I'm your customer. The beastman had just arrived, his hair and beard covering his entire face. Standing in front of the three people, he took a sword from the subordinate next to him and ordered, "Take these things to their house. Tell them that if they want to ransom the hostage, give 50 gold coins. If not, then wait for their heads." The beastman subordinate immediately accepted the order. The three human nobles immediately turned pale upon hearing this. The black-haired man shouted threateningly, "You damned beastmen! I want to see Lord Blade. My father is Count Pulley. If you dare." Before he finished speaking, he was stabbed by a sword from the old leader of the beast group. The beastman looked at the black-haired man with disdain and said, "Among this group, you are the most worthless one. Count Pulley has so many children. Don't you count them?" Then he immediately drew his sword. The other man died without a word. The other two looked pale but still tried to speak boldly. "Blade City, you dare to kill a noble? You guys don't keep your word." The blonde man had not finished his sentence when the beast leader interrupted him. "You guys only encountered bandits outside the city. And then got captured by the bandits. It has nothing to do with Blade City. Look, you guys are still fighting back bravely. You killed a few robbers," he continued laughing. "There's no need to keep your word with you guys." The two nobles were so scared that their faces turned pale and they trembled. The leader of the beastmen immediately turned around and gave another order. "Take them to the dungeon, and take the remaining slaves to the factory. Let them eat their fill and work. Hear that? Come along." The human who first brought the beastmen here shouted. The leader of the beastmen raised his hand and shouted, "Let's go, back to the city." Avery looked on with suspicion. Why would a human listen to a beastman? Moreover, this dog beastman seemed to have a high status. What exactly happened to Blade City? The cold wind blew hard and was very cold. On the ground, a human leader led a group of beastmen into a building. Clang, clang, is the sound of a hammer hitting an iron bar. The room the beastman just entered was surrounded by helmets. Avery looked in through a small opening. Inside, a man with his hands on his hips and muscular arms spoke loudly to the beastmen just now. "Eat your fill and work for me." Avery thought to himself. Making armor. So much, Blade City is planning to rebel. But what Blade City wants to do has nothing to do with me. Finding the princess is the main thing. Avery hid behind the wall as a group of armored, spear-wielding beastmen passed by. She thought further. Intelligence said that the fox beastmen were being held in the Blade City Lord's mansion. Let's go there and see. At the Blade City Lord's mansion, Avery quickly took advantage of the moment the guard turned his face away and passed by. Jumped quickly on the high wall, looking at the guards with suspicion. Why are the guards in the City Lord's mansion all beastmen? Could it be that the City Lord of Blade City is a noble related to the beastmen? But what about the beastmen slaves outside the city? Avery went into the basement to a door and heard a scream. "Give me the divine artifact. You damn beastman." Through a small gap in the wall, Avery saw everything in the room. A human noble lying on the bed reached out to take something from the hand of a brown-robed beastman. "Ah, it's a divine object," the noble said with a lewd smile. Avery looked closely at what was presented. Here is the devil fruit. Devil fruit can give people the ultimate pleasure. Once addicted, there is no escape. Inhaling it can cause mild mental confusion, severe physical weakness and death. The noble inhaled the smoke from the devil fruit. Then he collapsed onto the bed. His mouth was still smiling vaguely. He, world, fairyland. The orange-haired beastman standing next to the bed saw this and immediately spoke up. "City Lord, you have been inhaling too many divine objects recently. In addition, several city managers want to see you." The city lord on the bed still had a trace of excitement on his face. His mouth was still drooling, so he didn't care what the other person was saying. He raised his hand and waved it. You do it, go away." The orange-haired beastman looked at this scene and a smug smile appeared on his lips. "This fruit is too perfect. Invite those managers over tomorrow. Let them taste the divine object." The dog-haired beastman who captured those nobles immediately replied. "Yes, your majesty." Avery was stunned outside. He looked at the person he had just called your majesty with disbelief. That was the prince of the beast kingdom. King Brutus' younger brother Des. But, how could that be? Wasn't Des not out of the Brutus kingdom? Why did she appear here? The princess is probably with him. Des and the dog-kin beastman left the lord's room. As soon as they left, they met someone. The other person spoke. "It seems like it will be very soon. You will take control of Blade City. Sir Des. This one is Gray. Knight of the Old Kingdom. Luckily, thanks to your devil fruit. And here's your reward. Des said and threw a bag of money towards Gray. Suddenly, Gray felt something. He drew the sword at his waist. Smashed the wall and the door next to it. Who? Come out now. Avery on the other side of the wall also drew his sword to block. The wall was broken. Shards of stone flew everywhere. Kong. The two weapons clashed with a loud sound. Both Avery and Gray, despite being evenly matched, were knocked back by their opponents. A little blood was still flowing from their mouths. A human. There's no way he could block a full-powered sword strike. Who the hell is this guy? What's his relationship with Des? Avery thought. On the other side, Gray also thought to himself. Such a formidable beastman. Even more skilled than the two beastmen I met in the Western City. Sir Des. This isn't the person you sent to assassinate me, is it? Gray asked. Des saw the person who just appeared and immediately shouted. Avery. Avery didn't say much and said directly. Des. The princess is in your hands, right? Quickly hand her over. Gray saw that Avery wasn't here for him and said. So he's here for you. Then I won't bother you two to reminisce about old times. Then he immediately jumped out the window and left. Des. When she saw Avery ask that, she laughed coldly. Avery. She still didn't understand why. Avery gritted his teeth. He deliberately gave false intelligence. Des admitted frankly. Yes. I was just testing the waters. I didn't expect someone to believe it. Stop talking. Give me the map. I need that treasure. Avery was surprised to hear him say that. How did he know about the existence of the map? That year, when the ice and snow came, the country knew it could not protect Brutus. So it transferred all the assets in the national treasury. I don't know any maps, Avery replied. Don't pretend, Des said. She had always kept the child's things. The map was definitely in her possession. Just get that treasure. Add in the elite soldiers you've been nurturing for so long. Take Blade City as your base. Then you can fight against the Yinglu Kingdom. Don't you want to revive the Brutus Beast Kingdom? Give me the map. Behind Avery, a group of beastmen rushed out from nowhere and surrounded her. Avery didn't care about them. She straightened her face and exposed them. Resurrecting the kingdom of Brutus. I see that you are just trying to fulfill your own ambitions. You are a delusional person who indulges in the ambition of power. After hearing Avery's words, Des immediately became angry and pointed at Avery and ordered the beastmen behind her. Humph, you bastard. Arrest her. Avery glanced at the challenging beastmen. If you can, try it. A group of beastmen charged. Avery dodged and fought. Boom, the wall broke apart. Avery's figure shot out. Chase him now. I want him alive. No matter what, I must get the map. Damn it. I didn't expect the intelligence to be a trap. Your Majesty, nothing can happen to you. Avery gritted his teeth as he ran, making up his mind. Gray was standing on another building, looking at Avery's figure in front of him. Ha ha ha. How interesting. I didn't expect the ruined kingdom of Brutus to have treasure. If we can get it, then the target can move one step further. Gray said with a dangerous expression. Back to the city of Taeduan, which is also covered in snow. In Nicole's pizza shop. A voice said. Boxer number 5 is weak today. Just one punch and she passed out. That was Ellie's voice. She was commenting while eating while waving her hands. Dee's opposite was also eating hungrily and agreed. I thought so too. That person was really weak. Unfortunately, the master did not let me into the ring. Otherwise, the first prize would have been mine. Lu Feng, who was also sitting at the same table, could only smile helplessly and think to himself. He knew she was formidable, so he didn't let her go up there. Otherwise, people would say that the competition was rigged. She was the one with a mission. If she were to compete, who would patrol? Lu Feng immediately gave a reason that left Dee dumbfounded. Oh, right. Then continue to bite the pizza and eat deliciously. He stood up and spat food all over Ellie while talking. Lelissa. Another pizza. Lelissa was startled. Another. What a big appetite. Then he went into the kitchen to get some food. Before leaving, he looked back at Lu Feng and thought. Indeed, the lord of this western city is different from other nobles. Beastmen and humans live together in harmony. So can I not disguise myself anymore? Mina on the table looked straight at Lelisa, making her startled. Ha! Miss Mina is so sharp. I have to be more careful. If my true identity is revealed, I'm afraid I won't be able to stay here long. Lelisa turned and walked straight into the kitchen. At another table, a man in a black hat was staring at her. A moment later, the man walked out. There were two people waiting. Finally out. The beige-haired man with a scar on his face spoke up. How is it? He asked. The man in black who had just come out answered. Confirmed. She was just a regular pizza shop employee. The brown-haired man next to the beige-haired man spoke spitefully. Humph. Since when did our black iris become so cautious? If you've got your sights set on something, just eat it. This time, you even investigated first. Slap. The scarred man knocked hard on the brown hair's head. Stupid. The Western City is not an ordinary city. Better be careful. The guy who got hit immediately showed an apologetic attitude and smiled. Yes, yes. The boss was right. That Lelisa girl looked pretty. She would definitely sell for a high price. The guy in black with the hat rubbed his chin and thought differently. I think that Dee's girl is better. She would probably sell for a higher price. Bang. The brown-haired guy continued to get his head knocked, not understanding what was going on. The one called boss said. You idiot. That's the city lord's man. If we capture her, how can we escape? Take action tonight. Inform the others. Assign the same tasks as before. Once done, immediately leave the territory of Xi'an City. The boss gave the order. The guy who was beaten behind him still couldn't stand up straight. He was silently crying and complaining in his head. Why was it always me who got hurt? Night fell, Lelisa left the pizza shop. She yawned as she walked. Been thinking about researching 2 new pizza flavors. Didn't expect it to be this late. A noise made Lelisa startle and raise her head. What sound is that? So it was the night patrolman of the guard. Miss Lelisa. It's so late and you're not home yet? The guard asked. Right. What is that bamboo tube you're knocking on? Lelisa asked, pointing at the thing the person was holding. The guard explained. This is the way the city lord came up with to announce the time. Not 10 times means it's 10 o'clock. The city lord is great. Lelisa said. The guard was happy. That's right. The city lord said. This not only reminds everyone of the time, but can also scare away those who want to do bad things. Suddenly, Lelisa looked at a corner of the street where a figure appeared. Someone is following. Lelisa quickly replied to the patrolman. Guard, we're going home. Drive carefully. After saying goodbye, Lelisa walked quickly home. Slamming the door shut, he quickly ran to his bedside. He took out the arrow basket and put it on his body. He thought as he loaded the arrow into the bow. What's going on? Has my identity been exposed? Those 2 hunters finally want to attack me. Is my life in the Western City coming to an end? Lelisa pulled her bow towards the door. A trace of regret appeared on her face. Outside the door, the man in black was raising a sharp object that looked like an axe, intending to break the door when, bang, he stopped. Lelisa in the room did not understand anything when outside came the voice. The guards are on duty. Put down your weapons. Hold your heads in your hands. Otherwise we will use force. The 3 men surrounded by the guards panicked. The leader stammered. How could this be? Where is Vong Fong? Below the building. A scream made the scarred man look down. His body was held down by the guards and he couldn't move. Seeing this, he suddenly rushed towards the guard, wanting to run. But not for long. Dee stood right in front of him, holding a baseball bat. His entire body was black as his eyes were no different from a demon's, his voice cold and threatening. Hee, you still want to run? Ha. You hooligans. The guards endured the cold outside for 3 hours just to catch you. Now. Immediately. Kneel. The 3 men turned pale and raised their hands in front of their faces. The scene turned dark, only screams and the sounds of beatings remained. Slap. Lelisa in the room breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out to be the security team. Click. The door opened. What happened? Lelisa asked. Dee saw this and her face turned slightly red. She raised her hand to scratch her head and explained. Oh, Lelisa, I didn't scare you, did I? The guards just did a mission and startled you. The boss said you can rest for 2 days and then come back to the shop to work. You'll still get paid. I have to take this group home first. You go to bed early. See you in 2 days. Lelisa hummed. Dees left. Through the window. Lelisa looked down. Oh, it's the security guard. Since the security guard arrived, I'd been sleeping soundly at night. One of the men got up to listen to the conversation. The other agreed. That's right. No need to worry about robberies anymore. That's great. Lelisa thought. She suddenly remembered Mina's eyes this afternoon. So everyone has been secretly protecting me. Lelisa's face turned red, a tear appeared in the corner of her eye. The feeling of being protected by someone else. It was really nice. According to what they said, they belonged to an organization called Black Iris. An illegal slave trading organization. Operating in all countries. The handsome police captain with blonde hair and blue eyes held a document in his hand and read it. Hearing that, Mina walked up to the city lord Lu Feng and said, I've heard of this organization before. They're very mysterious. Furthermore, they don't attack ordinary slaves. They target beautiful girls. They also target beastmen and elves. Lu Feng put his hands on the table and hummed before standing up. Then the police team will increase patrols to ensure the security of Xi'an City. The police team leader made a solemn and resolute gesture. Yes, I will increase the patrols. The police captain had just left. The cat Mina turned to the city lord and grabbed his sleeve. She looked up with her cute little eyes and spoke worried words. Young master, I'm quite worried about Ellie. She often goes in and out of the city lord's mansion and has no ability to protect herself. She's very easy to target. Seeing Mina's weak expression, the lord acted like a hero saving a beauty. He held the beauty's hand. Don't worry, he would arrange for someone to protect her. The two people were so affectionate that their eyes met for a few seconds. Suddenly, from outside, an old man with white hair, leaning on a cane, pushed the door open and entered. The 2 words report had just left his mouth when he suddenly saw this loving couple. Lu Feng was planning to affectionately hug the beauty but was caught red-handed. This made him lose interest and he opened his eyes wide and shouted. How many times have I told you, you should not before entering, Mr. Buff? Hurry up and tell me what's going on. On this side, Mina the cat shyly turned her face inside. Old Buff apologized to his master with a miserable face. The farm outside the city just sent a message. They said that some green vegetables were stolen. Lu Feng suddenly stopped thinking, there was also something happening outside the city. At the farm, the sky was blue and the clouds were white, the only thing missing was the yellow sunshine. The whole land was covered in white snow. The trees had only bare branches left. There must have been more than a dozen huts in the middle of this land. Lu Feng asked, which tent was robbed? The curly-haired woman replied dejectedly, the tent in the west corner. There were clearly guards but it was still robbed. Lu Feng was like a majestic city lord, his eyes shining as he told Aunt May not to worry, we will clear everything up. After saying that, he thought that if the thieves accidentally broke in, it would be fine, just catching them would be fine. But if someone inside leaked it, it would be troublesome. The two of them walked out of the tent by the west wall with Mina. Lu Feng took the lead, looked into the distance, cleared his throat loudly and asked, Uncle Nyoben, did you find anything? Uncle Nyoben on this side saw Lu Feng, greeted him and then replied with the results he had collected. The thief broke the curtain outside the tent and stole some cucumbers. There were only adult footprints, and the footprints were very messy. The wooden stand was cut by a long sword, and the attack was decisive. The other party was not an ordinary person. Young master, could it be that some merchants knew that there were vegetables in the tent and plotted to steal them for profit? Lu Feng immediately stated his plan. It was unclear at the moment, but the other party would definitely attack again. Uncle Nyoban, tonight you bring a few people to increase patrols, we must quickly catch the thief. Uncle Nyoban and the 2 soldiers behind him immediately saluted and shouted loudly, understood. The next day, the weather was still blue sky and white clouds. A curly-haired soldier stood in front of Nyoben, scratching his head and crying, opening his mouth like a fish cleaning the tank as he apologized to the young master. Last night, we doubled the number of patrollers but we didn't find any intruders. Nyoben angrily folded his arms, you idiot, what are you looking at? City Lord Lu Feng and Cat Mina looked at the scene before them, speechless. Around the tent, wooden shelves were cut down and lying haphazardly on the ground, vegetables were also trampled and rolled around, the scene looked like a herd of elephants had come in and destroyed everything. Lu Feng looked up and analyzed, it seemed that the thief was indeed not an ordinary person. On this side, Nyoben's eyes were bloodshot, he raised his hand and knocked his subordinate on the head, he still dared to make excuses. The subordinate did not dare to resist and endured the beating, his eyes filled with tears. Mina stood up and volunteered behind him, her hand on her chest, radiating the aura of a strong woman. "Young master, let me defend you tonight." The city lord said, "Okay, I'm also very interested in this thief." Night fell, all around was quiet, not a single person or wild animal. The mysterious hooded man stood watching from afar. He didn't see the reinforcement soldiers from last night. He thought to himself, they couldn't catch him so they dispersed. In the darkness, he smiled slyly, "Ha ha ha, don't think I'll fall for it. If that hut can grow vegetables in the winter, then its owner is definitely not an idiot. Today the patrol was dismissed to let me down. I guess there is an ambush waiting for me in the hut yesterday, so tonight I will go to another hut. This is the only place with food in winter, don't blame me." After saying that, he went to another tent, took out his sword and cut the outer protective layer. He mysteriously walked inside. This time inside was not vegetables but cabbage. He leisurely walked into the middle of the tent, feeling pleased with himself. It was indeed very simple. He was walking leisurely when suddenly there was a loud noise. A hand reached up from the ground and grabbed his leg. The mysterious person turned back. Oh my god, it turned out to be Lu Feng's subordinate disguised as a plant sprout. On his bald head was a sprout, and his body was like a radish buried in the ground. This was the first time I saw such a disguise. It was really unique. The bald man, no, on his head was a sprout, holding the mysterious man's leg, looking up and laughing, finally caught the thief. All the cabbage sprouts and whatever flew up. The people on the ground ran out shouting, rush out, catch him, catch him." The mysterious man did not expect to be ambushed, so he snorted. With that, he kicked the soldier who was holding his leg, sending him flying and crushing the other two soldiers. Ah, pop, 3 people just collided. It was like killing 3 birds with 1 stone. The mysterious man immediately ran away, but before he could get out, a soldier ran in from outside the tent, holding a sharp knife in his hand and shouting, "The thief must not escape." With that, he ran up and swung his sword down. The mysterious man nimbly dodged. He circled around and threw a punch that sent the soldier's chin flying into the air, causing the soldier to spit out his saliva. Then he kicked the soldier in the stomach like a ball. Then he quickly jumped up high and punched the other guy on the head. The soldier's head was down, his butt was up in the air, smoking. The mysterious person landed and looked at the people lying on the ground and judged, "You guys are too weak." As soon as he finished speaking, a halo of light suddenly appeared behind him. It turned out that the heroine had arrived. The cat Mina wore a tight police uniform and jumped around, as if the mysterious person had quickly discovered. He didn't need to turn his head to raise his sword to block the knife in her hand. Mina widened her cat eyes and shouted, "Put down your weapon, you can't escape." The mysterious man curled his lips, "Ha ha ha, another guy, useless." The 2 people just kept fighting loudly, then retreated. The 2 people were fighting on this side when the surrounding tents discovered it and immediately lit up the surrounding lights and ran over to help. There was a rush around, "Over here, quickly catch the thief." There was light around the tent. Mina looked at the mysterious person in front of her and couldn't help but be surprised. She was a beast knight, a wolf from Vaya's tribe. The wolf knight also raised his blue eyes to look at the person in front of him. She was the cat beast man who gave me the dried fish. The 2 looked at each other and said in unison, "Why are you here?" Mina pointed at the person opposite and said loudly, "You stole my young master's things." The wolf girl was startled, glanced around, and smiled shyly. "Oh, I don't know, I didn't steal." "That's right, it's not stealing, it's borrowing, I'll return it." Lu Feng came in from outside, hummed and laughed, "If you're willing to come then that's good." The wolf girl glared at the person who entered, a human. Lu Feng continued, "It's just that this kind of cucumber is very expensive, I don't know if you can afford it." She angrily placed her hand on her chest and loudly introduced herself, "I am a descendant of a royal family, a beast knight in the beast kingdom of Brutus. What can't I pay for with just a few cucumbers from you? So I am a knight of the beast kingdom." Lu Feng looked at the girl in front of him and said in a low voice, "That's good. The cucumbers you stole these past few days should be worth around 30 taels of silver." The werewolf knight was startled and surprised. Could it be that the cucumbers were being inflated in price? This guy must have inflated the price to make a profit. She stuttered, "What money, just a few cucumbers, how can it cost 30 silver coins?" Lu Feng pointed to the sky and started to close his eyes and cry. "Of course, have you ever seen green vegetables in winter? Also, have you ever seen this kind of cucumber before? That's a bit lenient for you. I sell each cucumber for at least 100 yuan. Mina stood by with her arms crossed and watched, smiling bitterly. Why was the young master suddenly so calculating? On this side, the werewolf knight pursed her lips because she didn't expect the price of cucumbers to be so expensive. Now her mind was filled with cucumbers running back and forth. The cat Mina whispered into Lu Feng's ear, "Young master, Avery has helped our beast kingdom before. After listening, Lu Feng raised his chin, then this, considering your previous help to us, then let's not pursue this matter anymore, you can go. Avery was angry, his eyes almost emitting fire as he shouted, I'm not going, I didn't steal it, I just borrowed it, I'll return it. This girl clearly destroyed everything, stole something but insisted on borrowing it and not stealing it. Lu Feng secretly laughed in his heart, what a stubborn person. On the surface, he acted as if nothing had happened, then he continued, do you have 30 taels of silver? Avery turned away and replied, I don't have it now, but I will definitely pay you back later. Lu Feng had a bitter face, after you leave, who will I ask for money from? The werewolf knight was speechless and couldn't answer. Lu Feng curled the corners of his lips and offered another solution. But if you don't have money, then you can stay here and help me pay off my debt. Mina looked up at the city lord, it turned out that the young master had taken a liking to Avery's skills. Avery originally thought that if she were a woman and stayed to work, it would definitely be boring work that women do, like serving food and water. She immediately shouted, work, what work, I will never do those weak things. As expected of a wolf knight. Lu Feng let out a breath and said with a smile, what is this weak thing to do? Your job is to protect the people as I requested. It's hard for humans to believe, but this city lord's face is even harder to believe. Avery gritted her teeth, thinking to herself, evil people's words cannot be easily trusted, she must think of a way. But on the surface, she still agreed peacefully. Okay, deal. In the evening, at the city lord's mansion, the sky was golden and the clouds were rolling beautifully. The three of them, Lu Feng walked in front, the two beast girls Mina and Avery followed behind. The afternoon sunlight shone through the window, creating a shimmering golden color. Mina smiled and said, she didn't expect everything to be ready so quickly. It just so happened that the young master had just finished breakfast and could rest for a bit. In the gilded dining room, Nicole had brought out the food, smoke billowing. Ellie and Dees looked as exhausted as the famine of 1945. Dees lay down on the table, mumbling. I'm so hungry, Ellie said with her hands on the table, even if I'm hungry, I have to wait for the young master to come back before I can eat. Avery stood outside and heard the sound coming from the dining room. He suddenly thought that the sound was familiar. As soon as she arrived, Avery immediately showed off her skills. She rushed forward and kicked straight into the door with a bang. Lu Feng and Mina were shocked and their eyes widened. Everyone in the room suddenly panicked and turned towards the door. Ellie also jumped up on the chair with her eyes wide open and her mouth agape. On the other hand, Avery's eyes looked as if there had never been a separation. Princess, are you real? Ellie looked at the person in front of her, who was also trembling and screaming loudly. The entire castle shook from her scream. It was so ear-piercing. Ellie was like a kitten, quickly running behind Nicole and hiding. Her body was still shaking and screaming. Ghost, young master save me. Everyone was surprised by this cat Ellie's reaction. Avery thought he was reunited with his family, but was rejected and his eyes filled with tears. Princess, it's me, Avery. Ellie hugged Nicole with tears in her eyes and screamed. You're lying, Avery died a long time ago. Remembering the day before, when Ellie and Avery were running away in the cold snowy night. Avery had told her, Princess, you hide here and don't make a sound, let me distract them and come back to save people. Ellie obediently obeyed like a kitten, hummed and hid behind the rock. The cold wind blew fiercely, the surrounding trees fell down, the scene was desolate. Ellie sat shivering in the snow, why wasn't Avery back yet? The little figure stood up, should I go find her? The cold wind still blew fiercely, Ellie dragged her small steps to find Avery. Suddenly she heard a loud laugh, ha 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 ha, those lowly beastmen, today's harvest is not bad. The scene before his eyes was a beastman lying on the ground, next to a group of people holding swords, in the middle were three tied-up beastmen. Ellie's little heart fell out, she covered her mouth with her hand to prevent herself from screaming loudly, secretly exclaiming in her heart, it's human. Ellie was so scared, she ran with all her might, Avery was definitely caught by them. Ellie guessed in her heart that she was dead. Back to reality, Ellie cried non-stop, hoo, she died several years ago. Avery frowned and calmly replied, I'm not dead, you haven't seen my body yet and you said I'm dead. She said, Princess, I'm not dead yet, because I distracted the humans, I was seriously injured at that time, when I came back, the princess was no longer there. She remembered that when she dragged herself back to her old position, it was empty and there was not a single person in sight. Avery was moved to tears. For so many years, I lived for the sole purpose of finding the princess. I thought I would never see her again. Hearing this, now it really feels like there was never a separation. Ellie ran straight to Avery and cried, hoo, Avery, is it really you? I miss you so much. The two people were moved and hugged each other tightly like a real couple in love. Avery was brave like a hero protecting the little princess, Princess, I'm here. The people around immediately had dozens of question marks flying around, Princess. Via suddenly exclaimed, wait, aren't you the one who helped our wolf knights? Dees also exclaimed, wolf knight, is Avery human? It turned out that the person she was looking for was Ellie, so Ellie was the princess of the Beast Kingdom Brutus. Via felt like she had met her superstar idol, like a young person meeting the love of their life, and she exclaimed, oh my god, is Ellie really the princess of the Beast Kingdom Brutus? They had already gone through the greetings and reunions, now they were sitting at the table eating and chatting. Nicole said, so when they first ran away, was it because they were captured and enslaved that they got separated? Ellie smiled and replied yes, luckily I met Mina later, otherwise I really wouldn't know what to do. Mina told the story of when she first met Ellie. It seemed like Ellie had said she was a princess. At that time, Ellie stepped on a rock with one foot, looked at Mina kneeling at her feet, her head in the sky and her feet on the ground, and said, I am a princess after all, of course I can read those words written on the turtle shell. Mina thought back with admiration in her eyes, moreover Ellie also recognized the ancient characters, but at that time I just thought she was joking so I didn't pay much attention to it. Dees turned to pat Mina's shoulder, grinning and saying, I absolutely cannot see that someone like her is a princess. Ellie on the opposite side heard the sarcasm and got angry, like a cat howling, hey, I'm the fake princess who was swapped, okay? And you, if you had told me who your sister was earlier, Avery and I would have recognized each other long ago. Via said softly from the side, I don't quite understand, aren't the Brutus Beast Kingdom all beastmen? The werewolf knight was startled. Oh, this. Ellie interrupted, Avery, let me tell you this. She said that after a human and an animal combine, normally the child born will have to follow the father, but there are exceptions, or a few children will follow the mother. When she was little, she was playing in the garden when two other children from the lion clan saw Ellie and teased her with sticks, saying, look, where did this wild fox come from? The maid with curly hair ran over and advised, Your Highness, please don't hurt the princess. The little boy pointed at Ellie and said, she's not a princess. My father is a lion, not a fox. It is not the emperor's child. She continued, but in the royal family, except for me, all the other children are lions, so I am always teased and ridiculed by them. At that moment, Ellie burst into tears, you're not, you're not. She ran to push the other two children down. The other two immediately shouted, you dare to fight back? Hit him, so the three of them rushed to punch each other, pulling each other's ears and tails. The sheep ant did not try to stop them, but it was true, if she tried, the lion would eat her. Except for Ellie, when the two lion cubs were riding on Ellie's neck, someone came up and shouted, enough, don't stop for me. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed lioness Elsa, wearing a pure white dress, leaned on her hands and stared at them. The two kids who were bullying Ellie looked at them as if they saw a monster. They shouted, Elsa is here, run quickly. Elsa gently came to Ellie when she was sad and softly said, Ellie, are you okay? Ellie rubbed her wet eyes and replied, I'm okay, I won't lose to them. Elsa smiled radiantly, that's right, I only know Ellie is the best. Ellie's small hands grabbed the hand of the person in front of her and said, Elsa, are you really not the king's daughter? The lioness turned back and smiled, little girl, you are the strongest person who never admits defeat. If you are not the daughter of the emperor, then who else could you be? You are truly a good person, and your smile is beautiful too. Elsa's smile radiates sunshine, gentle and warm. Even Ellie was stunned by that smile. Ellie at the dining table continued, because I was not loved by everyone, I rarely appeared in meetings, so I didn't know much about the outside world. Thea on the opposite side looked at Ellie gloomily, so that's it. So then Elsa must be the female warrior of the Beast Kingdom Brutus, right? She must be the object of admiration for many people in the kingdom. Thea asked with eyes full of admiration for her idol. Ellie put her hand on her chest proudly as if she was my sister. Yes, Elsa has always been my warrior, the only one who loves and protects me. If it weren't for her, I would be a different person. She hummed, her eyes absent-mindedly filled with longing. She wondered where Elsa was now, she missed her so much. In addition to her job as a bodyguard, the Beast Knight also does psychological work for the princess. You could say she is both a bodyguard and a psychologist. She turned to Ellie and encouraged her, Princess, don't worry. Princess Elsa is a talented person, she will definitely be safe. She might also be looking for us. That's right, Princess, I met Prince Des in Blade City, he is looking for the princess. Ellie crossed her arms and snorted, looking for me, at least looking for the map I'm holding. Avery raised his hands, awkwardly explaining. Princess. Really? Ellie said, what's there to be afraid of, here are all our people. She rummaged in her tiny tail and pulled out a roll of paper. Lufone glanced over, Ellie opened the scroll on the table. There is a map drawn above. The people around stood up in surprise, what is this? Ellie replied, this is the map of the Beast Kingdom, the ultimate treasure. Avery standing by couldn't stop her and could only say Princess. Lu Feng, Mina, Nicole, Dees, Via stared at the map in front with wide eyes. Outside the castle, the sun was still shining quietly, the sky was blue, the clouds were white, and the sun was golden. However, the snow was still covering the castle walls, the weather was still the cold air of winter, but with the sunlight, the cold was somewhat relieved. In contrast to the cold air, the gentle sunlight spread out outside the city. In the city lord's mansion, the atmosphere gradually heated up because of the treasure map. Everyone shouted in a tone of extreme surprise, "The last treasure!" Ellie looked at everyone's overreaction and replied, "But there was only half of the map here, the other half was with Elsa." The wolf tribe girl Avery seemed to not trust Lu Feng's group yet. She was so worried that she broke out in a sweat when she saw her little princess hand over the last half of the treasure map of the Beast Kingdom Brutus and tell these people with no credibility everything about the treasure. Avery wanted to stop Ellie. She pushed Ellie's hand that was holding the map on the table, opened it for Lu Feng to see. Avery's eyes were filled with worry as she looked at the princess. Ellie didn't see or care about Avery's attempt to stop her. She waved the map in front of Lu Feng and said, "It's useless to leave it here. It'll also cause a lot of trouble. Young master, if you want, you can." Lu Feng looked at the old brown map on the table and then looked at Ellie, who rejected her. "No, Ellie, whether it is beneficial or not, you should keep it for yourself." Avery's blue eyes sparkled, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. Perhaps she was still looking at the city lord with anxiety. Lord Ellie was slightly surprised to see Lu Feng refuse to keep half of the precious map that many people were eyeing to take. Lu Feng looked at everyone with a serious face and reminded them about today's treasure map. Did everyone hear clearly? For Ellie's safety. No matter what happened today, whether it was related to Ellie's identity or the map, no information must be leaked out. Seeing the importance and seriousness in the young city lord's words, everyone shouted in unison, "Understood." Lu Feng relaxed his facial muscles and laughed loudly, happily saying to everyone, "All right, then let's continue with breakfast. I was so tired last night. It seems like staying up late to catch the vegetable thief who was our city lord is quite tiring." Avery looked at the lord of the Qingxiyang city, Lu Feng, and carefully evaluated him. This person. On the dining table, breakfast was served to everyone by the maid Lelisa. Everyone began to eat. The beautiful catwoman Mina happily and gently ate her breakfast. In contrast to Mina's leisurely appearance, the purple-haired, two-horned beast-woman beside her ate without any manners. She nimbly took each bun on the table and put it into her mouth, chewing greedily. Before she finished one, she reached out to take another. The maid saw this and worriedly reminded her. "Dees, don't eat like that." The maid Lelisa was worried that if she ate like that, this beast girl would choke to death. She really ate like a buffalo. On the side of the beast princess Ellie and the werewolf woman Avery were silent. Ellie happily and quickly put the dumplings into Avery's bowl. "Here, you eat quickly, or else Dees will eat it all." With Dees's speed, the food on the table will be eaten in no time. She might swallow the whole bowl. The wolf woman still had the same worried expression from the moment she sat down at the table. She must have been thinking about the princess and the kingdom's last treasure map. So lost in thought that Avery didn't notice Ellie picking up food for her. When he realized, Avery looked at Ellie in panic and asked urgently, "Princess, why are you picking food for me?" Ellie replied regretfully, "Don't call me princess anymore. The beast kingdom is no more. Just call me Ellie." Avery's eyes widened. "Refuse. No way. You will always be my princess." She had always treasured and been absolutely loyal to this little young princess. Ellie stubbornly raised her voice. "Then I order you to quickly try this meat bun." Gently emotional, not wanting. Wanting to receive orders. Whatever the princess wants to please. Avery sees the order obediently like a baby. Follows it right away. Eats the dumpling greedily. Ellie is pleased that Avery did as she wished. Winks mischievously. While chewing the delicious meat dumpling, Avery's eyes lit up with sparkling stars as he exclaimed. "So delicious. The surrounding area is so stimulating that flowers bloom. Cheeks are flushed. So delicious that eyes sparkle." Ellie sat next to her, watching the female wolf's reaction. Smiling lightly. "This girl is interesting." Everyone laughed happily. The purple-haired beast woman was still holding 2 buns in her hands. She agreed while chewing. "That's right. That's right." The atmosphere in the room calmed down, leaving only laughter and the sound of chopsticks and bowls hitting each other. After breakfast, everyone began their daily work. At a training ground of the Funam training school. Powerful shouts rang out. "Hey! Hey!" Along with that were powerful, quick and decisive blows. 2 women were fighting with powerful moves. The 2 women, one is the werewolf Avery. The other is the catwoman Mina. They are training together. Avery swung his sword. Mina easily blocked it, sending Avery jumping back. Watching the somewhat violent sparring match between the two female beastmen in front of them, the person beside the city lord couldn't help but feel worried. Young master. Should we tell them to stop? If they continue like this, they might get hurt. Lu Feng had a handsome face. His eyes followed their attacks with interest and assessed them. It's fine, they haven't used all their strength yet. The sound of feet hitting the floor continuously. These two women used all their skills to attack each other to the point that it felt like a life or death battle rather than practice. Seeing the two female beastmen charging at each other, Lu Feng felt that if this continued, someone might get injured, so he raised his voice and shouted for the two of them to stop. Mina immediately stopped fighting and turned to look in the direction of the voice. In contrast to her fierce and powerful attacks just now, Mina's eyes now sparkled like a cute kitten, acting spoiled in front of Lu Feng. Looking at the city lord appearing in the training room, she said softly. Young master, you're here. Lu Feng looked at Mina affectionately. Raising his hand to gently wipe away the dirt left by the match on Mina's face, the cat felt embarrassed and her cheeks turned even redder. Lu Feng replied to Mina. Hello Mina, it seems that I came to interrupt your practice? Mina was embarrassed and blushed by Lu Feng's affectionate words and actions. Turning away, he replied, we just came to take a look. Young master, will you practice with me today? Lu Feng happily agreed. Okay. City Lord Lu Feng took off his cloak like a gust of wind. He was only wearing a tight black shirt that showed off his beautiful body. It was comfortable enough for training. He held a wooden sword in his hand. Avery has been standing to one side, watching a romantic scene like in a Korean movie. Seeing Lu Feng starting to join the training, immediately spoke up. Sister Mina, can I go up? Also consider wanting the young master to teach me more. While she said that, she was secretly evaluating Lu Feng's abilities. This weakling had the ability to make the princess call him young master. If she defeated him, he could persuade the princess to leave this place with her. Lu Feng happily agreed. No problem. Let Mina rest first. Mina looked at Lu Feng. Her face was a little worried. Really sulking. She said she would practice with him. The sound of wind rose in the closed room. Lu Feng stood bravely, ready to receive the attack. Avery immediately made his move. He said, Sir Lu Feng. Please advise me. He rushed towards Lu Feng. Young Master Lu Feng also immediately joined in. His face was filled with confidence as he replied to the one who was looking down on him. Don't underestimate me. Avery used all his strength. He slashed at Lu Feng. But he missed. Lu Feng easily dodged. Then he slashed the wolf woman Avery's face, leaving her unable to react. She received a painful slash. Her face felt a sharp pain. The werewolf girl trembled in pain and dropped the sword in her hand. Lu Feng is too evil. He doesn't know how to cherish flowers and jade. Luckily, he used a wooden sword for practice. Otherwise, today, there would be blood and heads falling. Lu Feng looked at Avery. He proudly put away his sword and said, I told you. Don't underestimate me. He thought to himself. The two worlds are constantly in conflict. How could I not train myself to become stronger? How dare you underestimate me? I'll hit you to wake you up. Lu Feng put his sword on his shoulder and asked Avery. Again? Avery saw the young master's unpleasant attitude in front of him. He shouted loudly. Again. Lu Feng replied. Your moves are very powerful. You use a lot of force, but if you encounter someone with faster speed, you have absolutely no chance. Using too much force but still not hitting the opponent, leading to your strength not being able to keep up and being followed by the opponent's move, of course you will fail. Of course. Again. Must let people understand what it means to know yourself and your enemy. 100 battles, 100 victories. The two people rushed at each other again. The blows carried power. The only sound in the training ground was the sound of knives cutting through the air. Bang. Swoosh. The soldier and the cat Mina watched the eye-catching match and gave their evaluation. Mina, the young master normally only uses 6 to 7% of his power when training with her. Why did he use all his power today? Mina stood gracefully with her arms crossed, watching every move, answering the soldier's questions. Because the young master knew that Avery doubted his ability. Afraid that Ellie in Taeduong City was not safe, the young master wanted to show Avery that he was capable enough to protect Ellie well. The soldier understood. He let out an "oh" sound. Lu Feng raised his hand to signal the fight to stop. Tell Avery. Let's practice again next time. I have something to do today. Avery's face was covered in sweat. His hand unconsciously came to his mouth and he clenched his teeth and thought. I didn't expect him to be so strong. I need to practice more. Only by becoming stronger can he protect the princess. Avery is truly a loyal wolf warrior. His heart is always with the little princess. The handsome city lord before leaving turned back to encourage the wolf girl. Avery, your strength is not bad. From now on, Ellie and the others will be protected by you. Next to Lu Feng, Mina is still showing her cute little cat face. Put the cloak back on the young master. Hearing that, Avery closed his eyes and reluctantly accepted. Ha! It's just that I also need to protect the princess. That's why I'm helping you. Lu Feng also. Mina turned around and left. Not forgetting to leave a thank you to Avery. Thank you for helping me with a big thing. Avery was not happy. He replied stubbornly, Humph. You hit me so hard. I still have to help protect you in the city lord's mansion. I only did it for the princess. It was winter all over the western city. Snow was covering everything. Outside, the snowflakes were still falling. The scene was so beautiful and peaceful. Lu Feng said from the gate of the city lord's mansion. Looking at the snow-covered Xi'an city, he said. It has snowed for 3 consecutive winters. The maid behind him quickly added. That's right. These past few years, the winters have been getting colder and colder. Ignoring the 2 people watching the snow fall, the 4 beast beauties were still happily playing cards. Looking at the heavy snowfall, City Lord Lu Feng was deep in thought. During this cold season, the only way to keep warm was to let the servants stay indoors to avoid the cold. They would continue working when the snow stopped. If the sorrow merchants arrived, they would have to do it right away. Lu Feng turned his head to look at the group of people who were intently playing cards and asked, Ellie, how much fabric is left in the warehouse? Ellie was startled and replied loudly, let me check first, young master. The work was unexpected, but she still did not forget to give Avery her card and give him the order. Avery, keep it there. The 3 people were speechless at the loud voice and widened their eyes. Mina looked at Avery, who was fumbling with the cards in his hand, and said, let me teach you, it's easy. Ellie checked a bit, seriously reported, young master, currently there are 1,800 rolls of fabric in the warehouse. Looking at Ellie, who was attentively holding the inspection book, Lu Feng asked, then how many rolls of high-quality fabric? Ellie replied, about 8,000 rolls, and we have started purchasing more. Hearing Ellie report the quantity, Lu Feng sighed in disappointment, oh, still too little, the productivity is still too poor, not enough. Avery heard the entire conversation between the princess and the young lord. The wolf's ears were very sharp. She immediately helped and gave her opinion. I know a place with a lot of people, but they are all slaves. If it's cold like this, many will surely die. Lu Feng heard this and happily asked, slaves? How much are they? If the price is not too expensive, we can buy some and let them come to reclaim land and cultivate. That way, our entire Xi'an city will have more and more people. Mina the cat and the pink-haired baby rabbit didn't care about the conversation, still focused on the game, then were surprised and panicked when Avery played his cards. Avery won this game. The 2 of them widened their eyes. I lost. How could someone play so well in such a short time? People are naturally good at it, you 2 ladies. Avery looked at the 2 gaping faces in front of him and replied smugly, of course, then answered Lu Feng's question, no money needed, just someone to take them there. In the study, everyone was discussing about slaves. Avery said that Blade City was a capitalist country, and there were many slaves outside the city. A cup of fragrant tea was steaming in front of them. Lu Feng was curious when he heard Avery mention Blade City, but now that Des was controlling him, he was afraid he wouldn't let us take them away like that. Avery replied, yes, that's right, you really want to take them here, huh? Lu Feng replied firmly, why not? I just restored Xi'an City, the population is still low, resulting in many uncultivated lands, so I should take this opportunity to increase the population here. Avery was a little surprised to hear this. Seeing Lu Feng take out a scroll from under the table that seemed to be a map, and place it on the table, Lu Feng said, then let's not waste any more time, let's start discussing the plan. It's a map. Lu Feng spread it out on the table, looked closely at the map, and exclaimed, this map is so detailed. Lu Feng looked at Avery, who was staring at the map on the table, excitedly talking about his plan, or he would arrange an army to be ready to support the battle. Behind him, Mina and the rabbit were still playing cards happily. Avery looked at the map and asked where Blade City was. Lu Feng thought for a moment and pointed at the map, the area near the Shueha River, and replied, around here. It's about a day's horse ride from this river to Blade City. Ellie then spoke up to join in. Although it would take a while to get there, they could take a boat back so it wouldn't be a problem. Lu Feng agreed. But the 2 of them had an unpleasant expression on their faces, suddenly realizing that a problem had arisen. Lu Feng said, but most of the soldiers from the western city were newly recruited, and their abilities were not very great. If they were to lead the slaves back, would it be okay? Ellie also agreed, that was right, how could they avoid meeting the knights from that city? Avery had been silently thinking with a stern face all this time. Hearing this, Avery looked towards the city lord and her Princess Ellie, resolutely accepting this difficult task. Princess Ellie, the people of Blade City have always been searching for my whereabouts. If they know I'm here, they will definitely send someone to arrest me. I can distract the knights. Realizing that Avery's life might be in danger, Ellie shouted to stop him, don't do this, it's too dangerous. Avery remained adamant, please allow me to do so, princess. Lu Feng spoke up, forget it, how many knights can one person fool alone? Lu Feng's words made Avery think again, that's right, alone there would only be a dozen or so people. Ellie's eyes sharpened as she looked at Lu Feng and said, young master, use the treasure map as bait. Hearing that, Avery shouted, your highness. Ellie lowered her voice and said her intention, our goal is to negotiate with Des to bring the slave back. Avery can't do this task because she's alone. Now to minimize the risk, the treasure map is the best option. Just this map alone will shock Des to the core. Lu Feng looked at the little girl and gave her opinion, which made people admire her. He smiled and said to Ellie, it seems you already have a plan. Ellie is truly young and talented and thinks thoroughly. Ellie asked Avery, you said the last time you saw Des looking for me was near Taeduong City? Avery replied, it's been snowing so much these past few days, they might have entered the city already. Ellie cleverly turned to Lu Feng and asked, young master, please keep an eye out for any strangers around Xiang City, but don't startle the snake. Hearing Ellie's words, Lu Feng let out a "oh" in agreement. Ellie's expression was unusually sharp, her eyes filled with confidence as she spoke. From now on, we'll just have to sit back and watch the show, waiting for them to fall into the trap. It seemed like Ellie had already calculated everything in her head. At the same time, at an inn in the western city, the drunken Shao Tower. A group of beastmen were eating and drinking voraciously. They looked so vulgar and disgusting. One of them said while eating, this is great, no matter how much you eat, it tastes good, it seems like these beastmen haven't had a good meal for a long time. One of them seemed unhappy and shouted, stop eating, it's been a few days since you've seen any news of Avery. Hearing such angry words, a guy with a bun still asked the fat guy next to him bluntly. Can you eat pork? The fat guy turned around in confusion. Is this the time to ask such senseless questions? There were a total of 7 beastmen on the dining table, the atmosphere began to become tense. The green-haired guy like the green gecko said, our area doesn't have it. The idiot next to him also added, same with my place. Seeing this, the 2-horned goat man sighed and did not see the hairy bearded beastman behind him whose face was black with anger and his head was smoking. He angrily growled, saying, I can't find him, but he still dares to be here eating and drinking to his heart's content, then shouted. Hurry up and find him for me, don't just be lazy and have fun, find every nook and cranny for me, otherwise you guys won't even be able to keep your lives. The angry scream echoed throughout the room, transmitted through a receiver to Mina and the shy pink-clothed beastman standing beside her. Mina heard and stood up, her face mysterious as she spoke, confirming her identity as a beastman named Blade. On the sunny streets of the western city, the weather seemed good today. The beastmen walking around swaggeringly were attracted by the words of 2 beautiful female beastmen. These 2 beauties were the maid and the pink-haired rabbit in Lu Feng's mansion. The rabbit said with a worried voice, Via, please watch the children carefully in the future. Don't go out of town to play. I heard that there are bandits near Xiang City. Hearing the mention of robbers, Via asked urgently, robbers, did they come to steal food? The rabbit replied, I heard they are looking for a wolf beastman, and it's very large, there are more than 200 of them. The 2 girls looked weak and scared, oh my god, they won't break in here, will they? Oh my god, they won't break in here, will they? The rabbit girl's voice grew louder, the important thing had to be said twice. Via reassured her, it wasn't that bad yet, it was said that some bandits had already infiltrated the city. The fierce beastmen heard the whole story and asked 1,000 questions. Besides us, there were still people looking for the wolf beastmen. Could it be that the person they were talking about was Avery? Before they could stop to think, the strange-haired beastmen were attracted by the command of the captain of the city guard. This 2-horned beastman is really handsome. He is directing a group of guards to arrest anyone who looks suspicious. It is very likely that they are from the Tatfong bandit group. He shouted loudly, we must pay attention outside the city too, there are many robbers, we must not let them escape. Taking his eyes off the handsome and over-the-top guard captain, the blue-haired man among the beastmen said, what kind of background does the Tatfong bandit group have, that even the police have to prepare like this? The bearded man gritted his teeth and thought, damn it, there were more than 200 bandits, if Avery was really captured, how could we fight back? Then he ordered the beastmen to increase the speed of the search, to catch Avery before them. As soon as he finished speaking, the orcs were startled to see a figure rushing past them, followed by 2 men in black, one with hair and one with a bald head, chasing them. They exclaimed, "No, that's Avery." The green-clothed beastmen immediately chased after them. They chased all the way to the outskirts of Xi'an City. In front of them was a forest with many leafless trees, white snow, and yellow sunlight. But there was absolutely no sign of the Wolfman tribe. The leader was angry, it was over, he had lost track, the wind was still blowing in cold gusts. The crowd trembled and carefully observed. A loud scream rang out not far away. The bearded leader of the dog tribe with sharp ears discovered where the sound had come from and shouted loudly. Over there, their ears were as sharp as a dog's. A figure loomed in the woods. In the clearing between the woods a group of men in black, swords in hand, were looking at the beastman lying on the ground, blood staining the white snow. A man in black shouted loudly, "Hand over the map, or I will make your life a living hell." The shining sword pointed straight at the female wolfkin. Avery looked at his blood flowing on the snow, then looked at the shining sword tied in front of him. Hearing them mention the map, he thought to himself, "What, they know about the treasure map too?" The green-clothed beastmen hiding in the bushes nearby were surprised to hear the map mentioned. Avery tried to get up, the wound on his body still bleeding. He shouted in a loud voice. "Dream on, who the hell are you guys?" Seeing Avery's stubborn scaled snake snorted, "If she really wanted to know, then I would happily answer. Tat Fong, we have been looking for you for years and finally found you. She runs around all day, the treasure map must be on her. Find it." Avery stood up and fought back. The group of black-clothed men with multicolored hair, weapons in hand, gradually approached the swaying Avery. Seeing that, Avery said, "I will not let you have the map." The blonde saw her fiercely resisting and shouted, "I want to die." With that, he stabbed Avery in the heart. The sword pierced his body with a whoosh. This time, he really couldn't block it. Avery must have died. How could he live with a sword piercing his heart like that? The body of the Avery werewolf fell lifelessly on the ground, in front of the terrified eyes of the people hiding in the dark corner. The man in black and blonde hair sat down and rummaged through her body, pulling out the map. He shouted, he found it. The eyes of the beastmen in the darkness lit up like car headlights when they saw the treasure map. They saw that they had achieved their goal. One of the men in black said, "All right, immediately assemble with the army." Seeing the black-clothed men preparing to leave with the map, the dog clan leader immediately shouted, "Don't let them meet. Kill." The beast clan men with fierce faces immediately rushed forward, surrounding the black-clothed men. The three men in black were surprised by the appearance of the beastmen. They immediately raised their weapons and stood together to defend. The black-haired man had sharp eyes. "Look at the beastmen charging towards you. Order the remaining people. Beastmen. Another group of death-seekers. Kill them all to avoid leaking information. Understood." As they shouted, the men in black made their move. A series of sharp arrows flew down towards the beastmen. Several of the charging beastmen were hit by arrows. They cried out in pain. Seeing his subordinates panic and prepare to run in all directions, the hairy leader quickly reassured them. "Don't panic. Pay attention to your angle. Split up." But before he could finish his words, arrows were still flying, killing almost all of the beastmen. There were miserable screams. A subordinate hit by an arrow in the shoulder cried out, "My lord! This arrow is too formidable." It ran away quickly. The painful sounds continued to echo through the forest. The green-haired man's face was drained of blood. He followed the arrows. "Tell their lord. Lord. Retreat first, reporting to His Majesty is more important." Their leader realized the danger of the arrows. He cursed and ordered a retreat. "Damn it. Let's go." The group of beastmen had been numerous when they left, but only two had returned. The two surviving beastmen ran with their heads down, not caring whether their comrades were alive or dead. The four men in black stopped shooting arrows. They watched the remnants of the beastmen run into the forest. They immediately called for someone to chase them. Chase them quickly. They couldn't let anyone survive. Avery remained motionless in a pool of bright red blood, blending into the white snow. The men in black held crossbows. They shouted but did not chase. They just stood there watching the two beastmen disappear into the forest. On the snowy ground, besides Avery's body, were scattered the bodies of several orcs who had been hit by arrows. The subordinate was only hit by an arrow in the shoulder. But he couldn't run away and turned to look at the men in black, puzzled and wondering. "No, didn't you guys say to chase after them?" Before he could get over this surprise, another one came. From a pool of blood, Avery's seemingly lifeless body suddenly stood up. The other man was utterly shocked. He cried out in horror. The dead man was standing up. Avery replied calmly, "You are the dead man." Then he reached out and swiped what he thought was blood and brought it to his mouth to taste. not forgetting to compliment. "Oh, this tomato sauce is really good." The group of men in black took off their masks and they knew this in advance, so no one seemed to be alarmed. He walked over to Avery and said calmly, "That's right. But the next part is important. It's hard to convince the Wolfkin that the Tatfong bandits have more than 200 people. Then it's still a long way to keep those Beastkin Knights in Blade City." The blonde man looked at the black man indifferently and replied, "We're ready. Let's go." The man in black turned to Avery and said, I'll leave these guys to you." Avery replied confidently, "Don't worry. The green-clothed beastmen have woken up. Sitting and watching each of them." The wind was still blowing. It was cold. But the nightmare of these beastmen has only just begun. Avery's face was cold, holding a sword in his hand. He emitted a murderous aura as he looked at the beastmen. It made them tremble in fear. Avery now looked like the Grim Reaper. His eyes were murderous, his voice was like it came from hell. "Was chasing me fun?" The sky was getting dark, and the entire forest was covered in a blanket of pure white snow. The sky was gloomy, covered in gray clouds. The snowy wind blew fiercely, carrying a cold that could cut through the flesh. Prince Dessa's men were fleeing under the pursuit of the Western soldiers disguised as the Tatfong bandits. After several days without rest, seeing the weather like this, they stopped. They quickly found a cave to take shelter for the night, to report back to their master tomorrow to request reinforcements. If they let them go, they would definitely be going to their deaths. The boss's eyes looked into the distance, as if thinking about something. There was no movement for a while, probably the other party was resting. Guessing so, he turned back into the cave, cursing angrily as he walked. Damn it, he had been chasing for 2 days, but those mad dogs still wouldn't let go. The beast man was warming himself up, seeing his big brother angry. He did not calm his big brother's anger, and from his big brother's words, he discovered something wrong. He said, what the big brother said was not quite right. The big brother heard his junior say that, then approached and sat down beside him, his face blank, not knowing what he said wrong. Then he got even angrier, because his junior dared to refute him. He quickly questioned, "What?" The junior's face was serious, but he replied calmly, "Sir, you are the dog." In the little brother's mind, the boss's face was that of a big, adorable puppy. It was wagging its tail in front of him. Just as he was thinking about this, a loud bang sounded as a strong force hit his head, interrupting his train of thought. Following that was the angry scolding of his boss. "You idiot, you're still joking with me when it's this cold." The beaten beastman quickly cried out for mercy. Only after being beaten did he seriously talk about the main topic. "My lord, it seems that the treasure map is real. Otherwise, in such cold weather, the Tatfong gang would still want to chase us so far to kill us." The boss also nodded in agreement and encouraged his subordinates. "Tomorrow is Blade's day, let's do our best. Once we enter the city, they will have no way to catch us. Blade is his territory, he doesn't believe that those Tatfong bandits will dare to be arrogant again. At that time, he will take revenge for this." Not far from that cave, the Tatfong gang and the story of the subordinates were sitting around the fire. They used shovels to make a pan. On the pan was a piece of something yellow that was sizzling, the fragrant aroma wafted in all directions. One of them opened a bottle of wine, put it in his mouth to taste a bit. It was indeed very delicious. He took a full sip, feeling his whole body warm up, burning up against the cold winter weather. After finishing, he quickly shared it with everyone to enjoy and said, "Good wine, everyone drink some to warm up." Another person held a bowl of soup in his hand, looking at the yellow thing in the shovel. He smiled and exclaimed, "These compressed rations are really great, just one small ball is so filling." The person next to him looked at the pile of rations and agreed, "That's right, this rations was specially developed by the city lord to provide for these types of missions in such harsh environments." Seeing everyone praising the food like that, the team leader couldn't help but laugh, quickly picking up some more food for everyone to have more energy, ready for tomorrow's mission. Even food can't stop your mouths. Tomorrow increase your strength to cause a commotion. This mission is very important, otherwise, the city lord wouldn't give us so many delicious things. Suddenly, there were footsteps coming from afar. It turned out to be the group of people assigned to dig a snow cave. Each of them carried a shovel on their shoulders, their faces smiling happily as they finished their task. They said, "Captain, we've finished digging the snow cave." The captain saw that everyone was back, so there was a place for everyone to stay for the night. He reminded them, "You've worked hard, come here and eat and go to bed early." One of the people who had just eaten, feeling full, stood up and wanted to go to bed early. He said, "I'm full, let me go spread out my sleeping bag." The rest of the people also nodded in agreement and said, "Okay." Talking about sleeping bags, they felt it was magical. Everyone was talking excitedly. One person exclaimed, "That sleeping bag is really magical. Last night I slept in a snow cave, and I didn't freeze to death." At first, when he said he would sleep in a snow cave, I thought the captain was joking. Another person laughed, me too, moreover this sleeping bag is very light, convenient to carry. Captain, do you know when the sleeping bag will be sold in the big market? The captain was hesitant when he heard that, and replied uncertainly. He heard that there were only 20 of these sleeping bags. Nyo-san also specifically instructed that even if he couldn't bring them back, he had to destroy them. They probably wouldn't be sold in the big market. Another person finished his drink, then raised his hand and asked, what about this high-alcohol wine? We'll drink it to our heart's content after the mission is over. The team leader saw that his team member loved wine so much, he laughed, but he also liked it. It was great to drink it every day, especially in this weather. He replied, this was because Nicole took advantage of the time before we went on a mission to make it, so it won't be sold in the market for a while. The person asking the question heard the captain say that, and just sighed and said, that's too bad. Outside the snow cave, everyone was discussing wine, when another person spread out his sleeping bag and quickly crawled in. A warm feeling enveloped his entire body, his face exuded an indescribable happiness, just like a kitten being petted. With this comfortable treatment, he couldn't help but be determined in his heart. The city lord provided us with such good conditions, this mission, we must definitely complete it. Then he fell asleep. Early the next morning, as the sun rose from the snowy mountains, the whole sky lit up, the snowflakes reflecting the sunlight, making them sparkle beautifully. In the cave of the Lion Prince's henchmen, the beastmen were still sleeping, suddenly awakened by hearing a noise from afar. He opened his eyes wide and looked towards the sound, his pupils shaking. He quickly shouted at his juniors who were still sleeping, hurry up, they were catching up. The Catman's underling quickly got up, his face filled with panic, but he didn't know what was going on. The leader continued, the commotion today was bigger than the day before, could it be the Tatfong bandit group's army? Thinking of this, he quickly urged his group of underlings to say, it's possible, let's go quickly. After saying that, they hurriedly ran out of the cave, running towards Blade City. Not far away, all their actions were captured by a person standing on a tree branch, holding binoculars. In the binoculars were images of two beastmen, a dog and a cat, running away on the white snow. So from the tree he shouted down to his two teammates at the bottom of the tree, almost there, they've set off, let's set off too. On the way, remember to keep making noise. The people below shouted in unison, clear. The prince's two subordinates ran away, galloping. Hearing the noise behind them getting louder, they were scared and shouted to each other, they're getting closer, hurry up. Suddenly from afar, they vaguely saw Blade City ahead. Blade City had never been so beautiful and safe in their eyes. As long as they returned here, they would be safe. The two of them sped up even faster, breathing heavily, exhausted, but still not daring to stop. From behind, one of the mission team members had been standing here for a long time. That person raised his bow and arrow, a sharp arrow was released, tearing through the air towards the dog and cat beastmen. The dog beastman seemed to sense something dangerous and quickly turned around. What caught his eye was an arrow flying towards him. Unable to dodge, the underling was stabbed in the back by an arrow. He screamed in pain, but eventually dragged himself back to Blade City. Entering the city, standing before the Lion Princess, the two men knelt before the prince, heads bowed, faces drained of blood. The cat beast man was even more miserable, the arrow still stuck in his back. Blood was flowing profusely, the pain was excruciating, and he was still here as a ghost. He was being punished without being taken away for treatment. The Lion Prince's face was full of murderous intent, looking at his two useless subordinates lying on the ground, not only useless but also injured. He shouted, what use is it for me to raise you guys? His voice radiated extremely powerful power, the cold air that flew out seemed to pierce straight into the two demons below. The dog beast man trembled all over, fearfully defending himself. The thing is, the Tatfong bandits were numerous, powerful, and very aggressive. In order to silence us, they chased us to the outskirts of the city. The prince asked with a gloomy expression, how many people are there? The dog beast man trembled, stuttering, Buff replied, about 200 people. Hearing this, the Lion Prince basically knew the situation, gave the order, retreated to treat the wounded, then brought 250 beastmen knights, and robbed the treasure map back here. The two beastmen, dog and cat, seemed to be pardoned and let out a loud shout. On this side, outside Blade City, hidden among the tree trunks, the Tatfong bandits from the story of the old prince's men were sitting leisurely waiting. One of them thought about Nyoda's group, wondering if Nyoda's group had arrived yet? Another person in the group heard this and analyzed, Nyoda's group had come by boat, they would definitely be faster than us. Another person was certain that after returning to Xi'an City, they would go to Zuexiu Lu to have a meal of braised meat first. Although the compressed rations were delicious, meat still had more energy. He couldn't help but think of the alluring taste and aroma of fish meat. Thinking of this, his mouth couldn't help but drool. Everyone else also imagined this scene and couldn't help but nod in agreement. Before everyone could talk for long, they heard the sound of horse hooves coming from Blade City, shaking the ground. Hearing this sound, one of the team quickly raised his binoculars and saw the scene of a troop of cavalry, led by a dog-like beastman, walking out of Blade City, with a ferocious aura. He thought to himself, here we come, sure enough, they're trapped. He jumped from a high tree branch to the ground, telling the people below that the enemy probably had more than 200 people, to remember to keep their distance, and according to the plan, lure him to the intended location. Remember the route, go up that mountain and use the hidden skis to run, it's the only chance we have to leave the Beast Knight behind. As he spoke, he pointed to the snowy mountain ahead. Everyone understood the instructions and nodded in unison, understood. The commander said with a serious face, today's mission is very dangerous, absolutely cannot be negligent, no one can die. The crowd answered in unison again, the atmosphere rising to a new level. In the snow-covered forest, deep in the forest. The sound of footsteps echoed, wherever the sound went, birds flew here and there. The sound coming from the ground was the army of Blade City, led by the Dogman Beastman and his subordinates. He rode majestically, taking the lead, but not forgetting to pay attention to the situation around him. Suddenly, a loud noise was heard, and countless arrows suddenly flew down from the sky towards the place where the cavalry was. The leader of the werewolves raised his head, looking up in surprise and fear. When he saw the sky full of arrows, he quickly pulled the horse's rein to stop. Seeing his knights surprised, he reached out his hand towards them and shouted, "Don't panic, take out your shield to protect yourself, and continue to move forward." He had been attacked by arrows before. So he understood this attack of the Tat Phong bandits very well, so he was prepared. The knights raised their shields, the shields clashed against each other, linking together to form an extremely sturdy iron shield, completely covering the army. The arrows flew down quickly and hit the shields, making loud noises as the arrows were blocked by the shields and broke, unable to do anything to the knights of Blade City. The Dogman Beastman saw that the bow and arrow could not do anything to his team, so he laughed loudly and said, "There's no way out, right? Let's chase after them." After blocking the attack, they took advantage of the victory to chase after the bandits of Tat Phong. When the group saw that they had lured them, they shouted loudly to deceive them and let them chase after them. The Dogman saw this and felt something was wrong, so he shouted, "Damn human, even more cunning than a fox." Then he fiercely charged towards the Beast Knights and advanced in pursuit. He said, "We must chase and capture them." The Beastmen Knights heard the order and rushed to chase after the group of people. At that time, a group of Tat Phong's army was hiding above, watching the Beastmen walking on the road. The Ox Dai whispered to each other, the city lord was a god at planning things, most of Blade City had already been lured out. Nyo Dai leaned against the tree trunk and told the others to get the food and kitchen utensils out and start taking action. The others nodded, understood. Nga Dai began to tell everyone the plan that had been discussed before, according to the original plan. Squad A went to the forest to stop the Beastmen from sending messages, Squad B blocked the main gate of Blade City, and the others went to welcome the slaves out. When everyone heard the orders, they started to split up and act according to the plan they had discussed beforehand. At the slave gathering area of Blade City, the space was desolate, the entire large space had only a few makeshift, tattered tents scattered about. At first glance it is unimaginable that people can live here. Everyone here has torn clothes, sunken cheeks, haggard faces, lifeless wandering and hiding in their houses. A knock sounded on the door, the old man from inside the house opened the door and peeked out, his face filled with fear. In front of him were the Nyo Dai group of people sent to help the people. They had stern faces, and told the old man in a cold voice, "If you want to live, go to the bank of the Yutwi River." Another person continued, "There is porridge there, go to the bank of the Yutwi River to eat." They knocked on each house and conveyed the message. When the Beastmen heard this, they gathered together in the center of the village. They asked each other questions, their faces filled with confusion and disbelief. A rabid Beastman spoke in a tone as if he knew everything in advance. Was this a scam? None of the people who left would return, let alone the Yutwi River, where would there be any porridge? They were very familiar with these things, their loved ones left and never came back, was this to trick them and then kill them? Another person seemed to trust the Nyo Dai group, his face was not afraid of death, his voice was trembling as he stuttered in response. He had been hungry for days, he was going to die anyway, let's go try it. Hearing this, everyone agreed. They were already very hungry and couldn't stand it anymore. They were going to die anyway. Who knows if they might be lucky? They leaned on their canes and slowly walked towards the bank of the Yutwi River. Go and see, barley porridge. They were like zombies who had been starved for a long time, their eyes unfocused as they walked forward. Near the riverbank, a breeze blew, carrying the sweet scent of barley into their noses. Their eyes widened, their faces filled with disbelief, it smelled so good, it was real, it was real. On the banks of the Yutwi River, Tat Phong and his group were cooking porridge. There were many large pots of porridge being heated. The fragrant aroma made everyone want to eat a bowl. Normal people were like that, but these were people who had been starved for a long time. Their faces were full of excitement, their voices filled with joy, exclaiming, "Oh my God, porridge!" Everyone looked at each other and said, "There's real porridge, porridge." The beastmen ran faster and faster, as if the living people were not them. They pulled each other and fought to get there first, so that they could be the first to eat the porridge. They said, "Give me the porridge, give it to me first, I'll be there first, give it to me first." The person who scooped the porridge had a bewildered face, and advised everyone, "Don't be in a hurry, everyone has some." As he spoke, he quickly scooped up porridge for everyone. The beastmen who had not eaten for a long time, as they slurped the porridge, felt as if they had come back to life, full of vitality. They were so happy that tears flowed out. They felt that this was the best meal they had ever enjoyed in their lives. They said it was barley porridge. It had been a long time since they had such delicious porridge. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Finally there was porridge to eat. The Tat Phong people breathed a sigh of relief, seeing the beastmen so happy. They felt happy too. Outside Blade City, Nyoda and another person were discussing the situation of the oatmeal distribution today. Nyodi asked the person next to him, "How is the situation?" The person next to him replied, "I heard there is food. Everyone has gone to the banks of the Yutui River. This winter is so cold, if the city lord doesn't send us, then more than half of those slaves won't survive until spring." Suddenly a loud "ah" was heard. The two of them were startled and asked what was going on, then quickly ran to where the sound came from. Their eyes widened, amazed at the scene before them. In front of the two people were three little beastmen, their bodies huddled in a corner, their faces covered in dirt and fear. There was a little girl with green hair, her whole body covered with a bandage on her head. There was also a man, covered in blood, lying unconscious on the ground. The girl has a very pretty and cute face, but appears cold and unapproachable, with an aura that is not consistent with her age. The little girl saw the two people rushing in, raised her head and asked, "Are you here to steal food?" The two people had just entered and didn't know what was going on. She instinctively replied, "We're not." Before she could finish speaking, the pretty blue-haired girl appeared in front of Nyoda, throwing a piece of cloth as sharp as a sword, and rushed over. Ngudai saw the bandage coming, so he told the person next to him to avoid it. He turned around, drew his sword, and blocked the girl's attack. At this moment, the two people's cloth ropes and swords collided. Nyodai was surprised that there was something else in the cloth. The cloth string was tightly wrapped around the sword. The little girl only needed to pull her hand once and the sword would spin. The cloth rope thus wrapped around the sword, causing it to fall from Nyoda's hand and fall to the ground, seriously injuring Nyoda. The other person saw that the situation seemed a bit tense, so he stepped in to mediate. "Little girl, don't get agitated, we're here to bring you food." The girl saw that, her face cold, she replied, deceiving. Hearing the little girl not believing him, he helped Nyodai explain, "Why would I lie to you? The barley porridge is on the bank of the Yutui River. If you go there, you will be able to eat it." He couldn't help but sigh that this child was so strong. Hearing this, the little girl seemed to trust and asked, "What is the price for eating your porridge?" In a place like this where there is not enough food and water, the little girl already understood that you have to work to eat. Giving her food must have another purpose. The two people looked at each other with puzzled faces and said, "Bid, no need to pay anything." The girl then reasoned that there is no such thing as a free lunch in this world, you have to pay for it. She said that those who give favors have ulterior motives. The two people who heard it felt even more strange and asked, "What is your sister's name?" The little girl coldly said, "Flay." Another place outside Blade City, the two of them carried out a mission to lure the enemy into pretending to retreat. The two were surrounded by an army of beastmen. Those beastmen held knives in their hands, their faces filled with murderous intent. The dog beastman rushed forward, raised his sword, and shouted, "Give me the map, I will give you a quick death." The two men opened their mouths wide, eyes wide, sweat pouring down. The dog beastman slashed at them, but the two of them dodged it. His voice was full of provocation as he said, "Let's see if you have that ability." With a rustle, he jumped up and the map fell out. The dogman beastman saw the map and his face lit up, his eyes shining as he shouted, "Map!" The Tat Phong team members quickly jumped to pick it up, their faces panicked as if they had lost something. The dogman looked at the map at his feet and quickly grabbed it. The beast knights saw that their boss had the map in his hand, they were no longer afraid and jumped up, got the map, and killed them. The remaining member of the Tat Phong bandits quickly pulled the person holding the map to escape, but the other person still did not want to leave, his hands and feet still waving wildly, wanting to continue fighting. The person pulling him away said, "Life is more important, quickly run." They ran away quickly, not noticing that a box of dry food had fallen to the ground. The two of them ran quite a distance away from the knights, then stopped, turned around to see if anyone was chasing them, then said to the captain with a fearful face, "Captain, you scared me so much, that was so dangerous just now." Even though the captain was injured, he still acted as if nothing happened and smiled. Ha, only then would he believe that the fake map was real. Let's hurry to the assembly point. Uncle Nyo and the others should have completed their mission. At the Yutui River, on a large sailboat, Ngudai stood on the deck and told the little girl, "The wind is too strong, don't catch a cold." Seeing her uncle care about her so much, Flay was still speechless, her face expressionless, not cold. Nyo Dai sat down next to her and asked curiously, clearly she had the ability to kill enemies, why did she become a slave? The girl replied, that was the price to pay, I ate food in Blade City, the price to pay was to become a slave and be sold. Ngudai smiled bitterly, feeling sorry for the little girl, this child was so naive. He thought about her strength and asked, who taught you fighting techniques? The child replied, it was her. Nyo Dai asked again, that's right, I mentioned it before, why did my sister leave me alone? Flay was sad, it's because I'm too weak, it will only hold everyone back. Hold back, where did my sister go, he wondered, why did she leave the little girl alone? The little girl said, let's go catch a dragon, which made the person opposite her extremely surprised. Ngudai was surprised and shouted. Dragons, how could there be dragons in this world? From childhood to adulthood, he had never seen one, and had never even heard anyone mention that dragons existed in reality. Dragons only existed in myths. Seeing him so surprised, the little girl just silently handed him a small scroll. He took it and opened it curiously, his expression serious. This is. Open the paper to see a mission paper. Hunter Mission 7. Target, Dragon, Unknown. Characteristics, Unknown, a beastman discovered a dragon appearing in the Yukam mountain area, 10 m or more in length, 4 m or more in height. Has a very large mouth, sharp fangs, walks on 2 legs, requires killing or capturing, reward depends on completion level, will give trial money from 10,000 to 30,000 gold coins. After reading the quest board, Nyo to the plasterer, so you are the one with the dragon. The little girl stood up and said, I ate your food, tell me what price your city lord would make me pay. I only know how to kill people, if I kill a few more people will I have more porridge to eat? Hearing these words coming from the mouth of a 45-year-old child, he could only sigh. This child. He tried to explain to her that not everything had to be returned. The girl seemed to not believe it, it was impossible, if she didn't return it, what would she return? Ngudai closed his eyes and replied, perhaps, just a smile? Suddenly, the little girl coldly raised her hand to her mouth, pulling it to both sides to make a smile. Seeing the little girl suddenly acting strange, Nyodai's face was full of questions. Then he saw the little girl's face and funny smile, her face froze and she burst out laughing, ha ha ha, her laughter seemed to echo across the ocean. The little girl did not understand why he was laughing like that, and angrily asked him what he was laughing about. In the Blade City Lord's mansion, a beastman entered and knelt down to report. His voice was trembling. He reported that all the slaves outside the city had been captured. They blocked the city gate. There was really no other way. The Lion Prince remained calm, suspiciously snorting coldly, humph, in such a winter, which slave trader would be so stupid? Taking all those slaves, feeding them was fine, but being able to take away hundreds of people in a moment, the scale of the other party was not small. Suddenly from outside came a loud report, Lord Arbor has returned. The Lion Prince frowned, how come so fast, did that guy fail to chase the robbers again? Another report, Your Majesty, the map has been obtained. Map, hearing this the Lion Prince was extremely happy and laughed out loud, ha ha ha, looking down at the dogman beastman who was offering the map. Taking the map from Arbor's hand, he opened it, his eyes widening in surprise, this was only a quarter of the map. Seeing that Arbor was still kneeling on the ground, he asked how the battle was going. Arbor bowed his head and replied, we let the enemy escape. We lost 30 people, hearing that there were casualties, the prince cleared his throat, 30. We didn't capture any prisoners, but we lost 30 people. Arbor hurriedly explained, Your Majesty. Indeed, the enemy is too cunning, our equipment is too heavy to move. The enemy is hiding, using bows and arrows to kill us is very easy. Hearing this excuse, the prince swung his leg and kicked hard at Arbor. Arbor was kicked away, painfully coughing up blood. The prince also did not spare any mercy and exposed the ignorance of the orcs and dogs. They lost so many horses and only got back a quarter of the map. The prince shouted, other than making excuses, what else could he do? Arbor the dogman beastman was terrified and trembling as he begged for mercy. The prince secretly calculated in his heart, his good brother divided the map into 4 parts, surely Elsa had 1 part, Avery's part and Ellie's part, so where were the remaining parts? The hand that was welded tightly held the map, the voice that was cold and commanding said, send someone to find Elsa's whereabouts. Also, investigate the Tat Fong bandits, if they already knew about the existence of the map, then they must also know the information of the remaining parts of the map. The prince's subordinate bowed and nodded, understood. Outside the city of Xi'an, the wind was blowing fiercely. Tori was wearing a leopard print suit and was complaining that it was so cold. Weren't we talking about business? Then Tori looked up into the distance and waited, why hadn't her father arrived yet, she was about to freeze to death. Suddenly Tori saw a car coming from afar, so he happily shouted, ah, it's here. On the white snow, several carriages and a group of people dressed in blue, moving on both sides to protect the carriages, slowly moved towards the city gate. Tori waved his hand cheerfully towards the group of people and called out, "Father," attracting their attention. The carriages and the crowd continued to move slowly, silently ignoring Tori's calls. "Ha, isn't that Dad?" Tori stood rooted to the spot in the white snow, watching the carriages pass by, wondering what could possibly make Lord Lu Feng send so many soldiers to escort them. Oh, stop being curious. In Xiyang City, one must learn to not cause trouble. Otherwise, no matter who it is, they will have to go to the police station. While Tori was lost in thought, Lu Feng's guards and carriages had already passed through the city gate. Before Tori could finish thinking about the carriages, he turned his attention to the voices of people in the distance. "It's so cold, why do we have to go out in the winter?" "Well, it's not cold in the winter. If it's too cold, stay home." It turned out that his father, the lord of Beifeng City, and several neighboring lords were coming. Lu Feng's guards were also coming with them. Tori saw her father jumping up and down with joy, calling out excitedly, "Father, I've finally waited for you to come." The lord of Beifeng City was also happy to see his beloved son. His face lit up, and he called out affectionately, "Oh Tori." Tori's eyes suddenly stopped, looking at the lords who were walking with his father. The city lords were carefully observing the scenery of Beifeng City. The blonde man commented. It was indeed as rumored. The houses were very neat. The white-haired city lord walking beside them could not help but exclaim, "That's right, the streets were also very clean. We should learn from Lu Feng." Only the short lord had a grumpy and arrogant face and a jealous and spiteful mouth. There was nothing different. Except for the wider road and a nicer house. He was truly short-bodied. His brain was also short, and he was still jealous. Hearing the city lord's exclamations, Tori leaned over and asked his father softly, "What are you guys here for?" The city lord of Beifeng City smiled and replied, "Everyone heard that Xiyang City was very good, so they wanted to come and see." Later, they also had to visit Lu Feng. At the same time, in the city lord's mansion, the sunlight was shimmering. Lu Feng was walking into the room with the maid Nicole, who was carrying a tray with several bottles of wine. Lu Feng said that the wine that had just arrived this morning was bamboo wine. Although there wasn't enough time, it wouldn't hurt to try it first. Nicole listened attentively to Lu Feng's words. In front of the Taoren girl, Dees was pulling Lelis's hand, pushing her into the room, while persuading, "Come on, come in quickly." Lelisa seemed reluctant. Lu Feng and Nicole walked over and saw Lelisa appear here and asked, "What's wrong, Lelisa? Did something happen at the pizza shop?" Lelisa quickly replied, "No, the pizza shop was fine." Dees immediately explained, "I dragged Lelisa there, brought her to eat." Eat again. Every time I see Dees, we eat and play. Lu Feng was happy. Just in time. Sit down and try these wines. On the table, bottles of white wine were poured into sparkling crystal glasses. Lu Feng introduced, "This is 20-degree imperial wine, please try it." Ellie excitedly reached both hands towards the glass of wine. Her voice was coquettish. "Young master, I want to try a little." "Oh my gosh, baby, after drinking it, you made a fuss, and then you climbed into the young master's bed." Still haunted by the previous drinking party, Lu Feng loudly stopped Ellie and Mina, who seemed to want to try too. Neither of them were allowed to drink. Over here, Dees and Lelisa started to drink. As soon as she finished drinking, Lelisa exclaimed, "So delicious," in contrast to the cowgirl Dees, who spat out the sip of wine she had just drunk, while Lelisa commented, "The wine was very delicious, with a faint aroma of barley, the look was very delicate," while Dees grimaced and slammed the glass down in disapproval. "Too hard to drink, okay? Too bitter." Lu Feng still spoke calmly. "If it's not delicious, then don't force it." But what surprised Dees was that Lu Feng held the glass of wine she had just drunk. He lifted it up and drank it all in one gulp. Ignoring her wide-eyed thoughts. Did he drink what I drank? She had thought too much. He just didn't want to waste it. Dees was so embarrassed by Lu Feng's actions that her head was smoking. Lu Feng didn't care. He turned to ask Lelisa. "So what did Lelisa think?" Lelisa looked at the glass of wine. She commented carefully. "Delicious. Much better than the wine outside." This was the first time she had this kind of wine. Much better than the monkey wine that was brewed in the mountains by monkeys. Although the monkey wine was brewed with fruit, it was hard to compare the two. Nicole brought another bottle of green wine. "Here, Lelisa, this is the bamboo wine that just arrived. Try it." Lelisa picked up the glass and carefully tasted it. It was delicious. It had a faint bamboo flavor. Lu Feng replied happily. "Next year, choose a piece of bamboo forest to make bamboo wine?" Nicole replied lightly. Yes. The two of them were so engrossed in their conversation that they didn't notice. Lelisa picked up the remaining brown bottle of wine from the sample wine she brought and drank it in one gulp. Lu Feng was shocked and shouted loudly when he saw this. That was 40% alcohol. Are you drunk? Lu Feng was very afraid of drunk women because they would do things that no one could imagine. Lelisa drank it all in one gulp and then said mysteriously. Lord, can I ask you a question? Will you protect all races? Lelisa's seductive eyes looked at Lu Feng, waiting for an answer. Lu Feng replied firmly, of course. Anyone who lives in my territory, regardless of whether they are humans, beastmen, or elves, I will protect them all. Lelisa heard and turned away, softly thanking him. A guard entered and reported. Young master, the Lord of Beifeng has arrived. And 4 other lords are also here. They have invited you to the Drunken Sky Pavilion for a meal. Lu Feng told the guard, telling them that I have guests today and it is not convenient to leave. Tomorrow I invite them to watch the lacrosse match. Ellie was still upset about not being able to try the wine, unhappy. Young master, they came with no good intentions. Lu Feng calmly replied, we will know tomorrow. The clear blue sky and gentle breeze shine down on the drunken tower of the western city. A soldier in military uniform bowed and said, the city lord thanks you all 1,000 times for your invitation. But today he has an important guest to entertain. He really has no way to come. I hope you all will forgive me. Then, I will not bother you any further. I will take my leave. After saying that, he closed the door and left, leaving the 5 guests sitting alone at the banquet table. A man slammed his hand on the table and shouted loudly. There were 5 city lords in the room. He didn't come. Is this trying to show off to us? The city lord was chubby like a pig at the side. He had a braided beard. He twitched his curved beard and said with a smile. Let's eat first. It's true that food is the key to virtue. Even if you're angry, you have to eat first. The other bearded city lord picked up the menu and said. Let's eat first. Tomorrow, I want to ask something. Is this the way of hospitality for nobles? The gentle receptionist walked over and bent down to ask, Sir, what would you like to order? As soon as he was asked that, the city lord forgot his intention. He quickly opened the menu to look. He looked at the menu and commented, these dishes were too expensive. And they were priced in money. His heart felt like it was being cut into pieces by a knife, but he still had to pretend that he was a rich city lord. He wanted this, and this too. The receptionist standing by the side was startled and asked, Are you sure? These are all things. Before he could finish speaking, he interrupted again. All right, Lord of Beifeng, please order too. The Lord of Beifeng's face was already blooming with laughter as he said, Then I want this dish. Sure enough, the father and son looked alike. They looked alike, and were as plump as him. Tori gathered around to remind him. Father. But this dish. What dishes did we order? Ah, a sound, like a thunderclap from a clear sky. The dishes were already laid out on the table. The bearded city lord who ordered the dish shouted. What's going on? Why is it vegetable soup? Are you looking down on us? He angrily slammed his hand on the table. The son of the northern lord is like a lamb but wears a leopard skin coat and speaks softly. I wanted to remind you just now. You yourself interrupted her. The old city lord shouted angrily. I want to go complain. I want to see your boss. On this side, the receptionist brought a plate of stir-fried vegetables to the table. The other guy looked at the plate of vegetables and exclaimed in surprise. Vegetables, cabbage. How could there be cabbage in the middle of winter? The green-robed city lord picked up a piece of cabbage with his fork and looked at it as if he was studying a strange creature. In the middle of winter, this cabbage must not be fake. The brown-robed city lord also picked up the bowl of soup and stared. This soup was really delicious. So the men started to eat the cabbage with ravenous appetite, praising it. It was really cabbage. And very fresh. It was really unbelievable. There could be cabbage in the middle of winter. There was the last bit of greens left on the plate. 2 people's forks were stabbed down together. The 2 of them looked at each other, fighting over the last piece of cabbage. This is what I ordered. Didn't you also drink the soup I ordered? What's wrong with eating the last piece of cabbage? Even though they are the city lords, they are fighting over food and drink like in the famine of 1945. The son of the northern city lord looked at them with judgment. What kind of nobles are they? They're fighting over a meal. How embarrassing. The old city lord in the green hat chewed on a piece of meat as he spoke. I take back what I said earlier. He can still grow vegetables in winter. Lu Feng. He's not simple. Anyone who can become a city lord is no fool. Who doesn't know the prospects of growing winter vegetables? If he can learn this technique, then this trip will be worth it. If we can grow vegetables in winter, we can also grow grass. Our horses will also have grass to eat in winter. Then next spring we can sell them for even more money. The 5 city lords fell silent and looked at each other. A city lord stood up and spoke. It seemed like everyone had taken a liking to the secret technique of growing vegetables. The green-hatted city lord said, "Of course. But the city lord of Xi'an City won't easily tell us the secret." The other white-haired old city lord speculated. "But this western city is just a small city. It won't be able to develop on its own. It still has to join forces with us." The golden-eyed and golden-haired city lord continued. "Right. Only we can unite as one. Put pressure on the western city lord. If he doesn't hand over the winter vegetable growing techniques, we won't cooperate. Tomorrow, our attitude must be firm. We must obtain the secret technique of growing winter vegetables." Beside, the son of the northern city lord lamented his misery. Do they know their true identities? This is the western city. The next day, in the square outside the city lord's mansion, several city lords sat on benches watching the people below clearing the snow that had covered the yard. They had all been waiting for Lu Feng for a long time. One of them was anxious. Why hasn't the city lord of Xi'an arrived yet? They've been waiting for an hour. The green-hatted city lord let out a breath and said, perhaps still not awake. The city lord braided his beard and was still amiable. There must be some delay. Lu Feng wouldn't be indifferent to us. Dear lords, we sincerely apologize. Our lord wanted to let you all watch a great match. Last night he was at the stadium setting up. He didn't go to bed until morning, so he's late today. Please wait a little longer. Everyone turned towards the gentle voice. It turned out to be the voice of a virtuous young lady. A beautiful halo of light was emitted from the surroundings. The city lords couldn't bring themselves to curse when they saw the beauty standing in front of them, so they silently looked at each other. They had to save some face. The guy who just wanted to argue with Lu Feng now only dared to curse in his heart. He also said that he was late because he was at the design site. Even though he knew it was just an excuse, it still made us unable to get angry. This Lu Feng guy is quite scheming. On this side, Avery walked behind Lu Feng and said, I heard from the princess that those people came to cause trouble. Lu Feng smiled and replied. It's almost like that. What are they planning? Mina already told me about the intelligence last night. Avery drew the sword behind his back and said, if they dare to threaten the princess's safety, please let me handle them. Seeing the werewolf knight so fierce, Lu Feng immediately said, don't cause trouble. If all 5 city lords die in Xi'an City, who will dare to come in the future? Avery put away his sword, humming in disgust, how annoying. Lu Feng turned back and said, don't worry, not only do they have a plan, I do too. The two of them walked to the square. Lu Feng immediately smiled and greeted them, truly sorry, he slept late last night. The bearded city lord's face darkened when he saw Lu Feng approaching, wishing he could tear Lu Feng to pieces. The northern city lord smiled warmly, Your Highness Lu Feng, we meet again. Lu Feng also smiled and replied, the body of the Beifeng city lord was more plump, it seemed that the days were getting more and more fulfilling. The chubby city lord was praised and narrowed his eyes and laughed, ha 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 ha. The previously silent city lord was sandwiched between the two people joking around. He looked up at Lu Feng's face with disgust and boredom. This was the city lord of Xi'an, and he was too young. Lu Feng raised his right hand to signal, sorry for keeping you waiting, let the competition begin. The green-hatted city lord folded his arms and looked down at the stands, asking, Your Excellency Lu Feng, what kind of competition is this? This is an ice hockey match, a team-based match. Using the stick to move the ball into the opponent's net is a score. At the same time, the referee below loudly calls out the rules of the match. The match time is 90 minutes. During the match players can be replaced or added. There is a 10-minute break between periods. 1 fruit 1 point. The team with the higher score wins. The winning team will be rewarded with a roasted pig's head by the city lord. The lord of Beifeng City looked at the athletes competing skillfully on the ice and asked, Your Excellency Lu Feng, what kind of shoes are they wearing? How can they move on the ice at will? This is the first time I've seen it. Lu Feng smiled and replied, those are ice skates. The soles are made of iron and steel, and are specially designed for walking on ice. Below the stands, 2 athletes wearing contrasting red and blue protective suits were trying to win the ball. The chubby old city lord jumped up and cheered. Good, he thought to himself, this match was really interesting. If I could do something like this in Beifeng City, I wouldn't need to sleep in the city all day. Thinking of this, he smiled and turned to Lu Feng and asked, Your Excellency Lu Feng, how much do these ice skates cost? Lu Feng politely quoted the price. A pair was about 10 silver coins, plus protective clothing and bats. 1 player would cost about 1 gold coin. A team plus reserves needed 15 people. If they wanted to form a match, then needed 30 people. The remaining city lords were extremely surprised to hear this, spending 30 gold coins in one match. This was too extravagant. How about it, are the city lords interested? This competition is very interesting, the city lords can create their own to play. Hearing Lu Feng turn to ask, the corner of the North City lord's lips twitched. With so much money, how could he create it? He immediately turned to smile at Lu Feng and found another excuse to save face. Still shouldn't, this is too dangerous, not suitable for me. The bearded city lord looked at Lu Feng's smile and gritted his teeth in jealousy. This Lu Feng was showing off to us again. If the plan was not carried out, he would pressure us to death. Suddenly, Lu Feng clapped his fist into his palm in surprise. That's right, Your Excellency Joseon, I heard your territory is selling horses, right? How much does a full-grown war horse cost, and what is the normal price for a horse? Joseon was startled, turned back and put on a friendly innocent face and replied. A full-grown warhorse costs 1 gold and 30 silver coins, the normal price for a horse is 10 silver coins. So how many war horses does Lord Joseon have? There are about 300 mature war horses, a total of 390 gold coins. Lu Feng laughed loudly, your war horses, I want them all. As if shocked, the Joseon city lord's eyes widened, he wanted them all? Lu Feng turned around and nodded, of course, what's the problem? Joseon put his hands forward and smiled, no, of course not. Finished, the young city lord turned to the fat man beside him and said, also, city lord of Beifeng, my canned fish output has increased a lot recently. Not only can it be supplied to the army, it can also be sold. I wonder if you are interested? The Beifeng city lord was like a blind cat catching a fried fish and immediately agreed. Yes, I wonder how much Lu Feng city lord can sell it for. Lu Feng immediately said that the Beifeng city lord was an old acquaintance, so he must give him the maximum purchase limit, 100 boxes in 10 days. What do you think? Okay. The lord of Beifeng city cheered, it was indeed beneficial to befriend his excellency Lu Feng. These two lords were so happy that their souls were blooming. The remaining city lords did not benefit at all. Standing outside would have been more clear-headed. Like a bolt from the blue, tears streamed down their faces. What alliance, what plan, they were fooled. Completely fooled. In the afternoon, there was urgent news in Taifeng City, the fleet going to Blade City had returned. A shaggy-haired soldier in military uniform, followed by an old man and a child, opened the door and walked in to greet the young master. Lu Feng and Mina headed towards the door. Lu Feng was cheerful, hard work, nothing unexpected happened, brought so many people back. The subordinate replied, there were 857 slaves in total. The soldiers said that there were about 400 slaves who froze to death. Lu Feng eyes regretful, if only we could have known a little earlier. Thinking of this, he immediately gave an order, buff, yes. Nyoda, all the slaves brought back will be under your responsibility, the reward and punishment system and redemption regulations have been determined, you just need to follow them. Yes. Lu Feng glanced at the little girl standing beside him. This little girl was. The little girl in front of him had blue eyes, looking sadly at the person opposite. The shaggy-haired soldier looked down at the girl and replied, her name was Flay, a slave brought back in this operation. Her skills are not bad, and she calls herself an assassin. I don't know what to do, so I can only bring her here. Flay is small in stature but has cold blue eyes like an old lady, you are his city lord, I drank your barley porridge, how will I pay? The soldier standing beside her laughed and added, she kept saying that no meal is given away for free, and asked me how much I had to pay for the barley porridge. I really didn't know how to answer, so I could only tell her that it was your barley porridge, and let her ask you how much you had to pay. Flay looks small but her cold and terrifying words make anyone who doesn't know think she's cute. I don't know anything, I only know how to kill people. Lu Feng forced a smile, secretly laughing bitterly in his heart, killing someone. He turned to the little girl and said, okay, I'll pay you back the price of the porridge first. If I want to kill someone in the future, you can do it. For the time being, you can stay with me, how about that? Flay gloomily whispered, okay. The city lord turned to the cat girl Mina, he took her to bathe first, then changed her clothes to keep her warm. Okay. The two of them went to the bathroom was spacious, on the wall there were stone heads protruding, water flowing from their mouths into the bathtub. There was also a row of chairs next to the bathtub. Mina glanced at Flay's body sitting on the chair. He was so skinny. These past few days must have been very difficult. Flay's eyes were sad, Mina smiled and walked to her side. Flay smiled and said, okay, take off the cloth on your head, it's too dirty. She said as she raised her hand to remove the bandage that was tied on Flay's head. The blue eyes looked up and coldly said, this is a disguise. The eldest sister said that in the human race, one must disguise, a good assassin must also disguise. Wrapping the ears can make me carry out my mission safely in the human race. Mina was surprised, human, disguised, so she was a beastman. The bandage opened, and 2 feathered wings grew from her ears. Mina exclaimed, "Flay, you are a bird beast." "Wait. So you..." Mina said as she removed the bandages on her body. "Wings, where were the wings?" On her back, there were no wings but a scar left as if someone had cut them off. Nanlan's sun is located in the west of the beast-headed kingdom of Brutus, a paradise for the bird-headed beast race. However, this is also the first place to encounter cold winds. The cold wind came, and many of the beastmen had no chance to escape. Although some of the birdmen managed to escape, the cold wind made it impossible for them to fly. Because of their rarity, the bird-human beasts were even more popular at the auction than the elves. Therefore, many humans and even beastmen wanted to capture the few remaining bird-humans there. Today, it is rare to see any free bird-human or beastkin. Everyone at the meal listened attentively as Flay recounted his clan's past. Via's eyes were full of sympathy. Flay's wings were probably also made by bad people. To dispel the gloomy atmosphere, Lu Feng interrupted, "Stop talking, eat first." Lu Feng said as he picked up a piece of meat and gently brought it in front of Flay. "Try it. This is dipped goat meat. Open your mouth." Flay listened and opened her mouth wide as if she could fit 4 to 5 pieces of meat in her mouth biting into the meat. "Chew chew swallow swallow, the taste is very delicious. It's like the first time I've eaten such a delicious dish, my eyes are already sparkling." Lu Feng continued speaking softly, "There are also cucumbers, pork, fish, she should try some too." Before she could finish speaking, Flay reached out to grab some food from the plate. Lu Feng shouted loudly, "Hey hey hey, you don't use your hands, do you know how to use chopsticks? Alright, then use a spoon." Flay took Lu Feng's spoon and ate the plate of chicken with relish. It must be said that eating like a hungry tiger, eating like a pig, eating like the famine of 1945. Ellie and Mina saw her eating deliciously and smiled. Lu Feng continued to speak. She wanted to eat more of something. If she ate more dishes, maybe her wings would grow longer. Flay's mouth was still full of food. He looked up with big round eyes. "Really, really? Of course, I have never lied." Flay swallowed all the food in his mouth and continued, "But when my eldest sister cut off my wings, she also said that they could grow back after 23 years. But now it's been 5 years and 3 years, and they still haven't." A hand slammed on the table. Dees angrily stood up and shouted, "Her wings were cut off by her sister. What kind of sister is that? Too evil." Flay replied, not letting her say that. "The eldest sister cut off my wings because she didn't want me to be captured by the humans." Lu Feng interrupted from the side, Okay. If it wasn't because of some hardship, no one would want to hurt their little sister." Flay turned to ask the young master of the city, "What price do I have to pay for you to help me find my elder sister?" Lu Feng asked, "Isn't Flay's elder sister a dragon slayer? Does she have any special qualities?" Flay replied, "My elder sister is a very powerful assassin. She is the 3rd-rank assassin who hunted 1,000 bounty." Mina was startled, the 3-star bounty assassin. The 3rd person I remember is called the assassin hunter Tien Van. This is the super assassin who killed several heirs of the Grand Duke, wanted by the kings of many countries. Lu Feng paused for a moment after hearing that, then turned around and patted Flay's head. "Don't worry, I will help you keep track of your sister's news. As for the price, wait until we find your sister and then talk." Flay was a little surprised, glancing at Lu Feng with his innocent blue eyes. "Okay." After dinner, Lu Feng, Nicole, and Ellie all put on long blue warm coats and walked around the rose garden in the big tent in the garden house. Everyone walked around the flower beds. Ellie looked at the stunning red roses. Her eyes were full of praise. "These flowers smell so good. Fresh flowers in winter will definitely sell for a very high price." Nicole also smiled and nodded. "That's right. They can also be used for food." Lu Feng held a rose in his hand, looked at it for a moment, and said, "Both of you have good ideas. But I have another way to make more money." The 2 people beside her unconsciously looked up at the same time. A question appeared in Ellie's mind. What other way could she make more money? What else could she do with this flower other than selling it and making it into food? Lu Feng curled the corners of his lips. Then the 3 of them walked into the laboratory in the city lord's mansion. There were shelves inside the room. On them were many colorful medicine bottles. There are many scales and mortars on the table. There are many tools for doing experiments. Ellie and Nicole stood by and watched Lu Feng pour the pink liquid into the clear liquid. Ellie watched Lu Feng stir the solution in the cup, observing closely. Lu Feng explained, taking the essential oil extracted from the petals and pouring it into the high-concentration alcohol that Nicole had distilled and stirring it well. It was perfume, although it could only be preserved for about 6 months. Lu Feng brought the cup with the solution stirred in front of Ellie. Ellie fanned the scent coming from the cup and kept smelling it. Her eyes lit up as if she was lost in a flower forest, as if she smelled her intoxicating scent. She picked up the cup and praised it. It smells so good, and can it last for 6 months? The perfume I used before went bad after only a few times. Lu Feng explained that the perfume here only soaked the petals in water. When the flowers rot, the fragrance will naturally turn into a foul smell. On this side, Ellie listened attentively to the explanation. On the other side, Nicole was still standing in the middle of the flower forest with the strong fragrance coming from the cup. Lu Feng continued, Ellie used perfume before. How does this bottle compare to the one she used before? How much can she price it? Ellie said, this is much better than the one I use. This vase can be sold for at least 10 gold coins. Lu Feng looked at the cup emitting a fragrant scent and said with a smile, not much different from what I had guessed. Sorrow's merchant ship is coming soon. Quickly produce this perfume so he can help us pave the way to sell it to the nobles. Ellie beside him nodded as if she was about to break an agreement. On a large merchant ship moving on the island, in the sky above there were several white seagulls flying around. The sky was blue, the wind was cool, there were 2 young girls standing on the deck. The blonde girl propped her chin on her hands and said dejectedly, still haven't reached Xi'ang City, I'm about to die of suffocation on the ship. The girl in pink inside was gentler. She put on a pink shirt and closed her eyes, smiling and saying, it's almost here, if you're bored then go find some bodyguards to play with. The bodyguards you mentioned are all on the other side of the train, all muscular, working out there. He lifted weights, he did push-ups, showing off his strength and muscles. She laughed and said, you said you wanted to go to Xi'ang City, but you brought a bunch of people with you. I have to collect your train fare. The blonde girl pouted, I just let it slip, who knew they would have the free time to follow me? The girl in pink exclaimed, your face is red, she said and then poked her friend's cheek with her finger. Her chubby cheeks were slightly red with anger and embarrassment. She opened her big blue eyes and worriedly put her hand on her forehead, wait, why is your face so hot, are you not feeling well? The blonde girl shyly said, no, I feel a little dizzy. But it seemed like she wasn't just shy, she was blushing, she really fainted. The girl in pink next to her panicked and supported her, Catherine, what's wrong? At this moment, the bright sunlight shone on the Xi'ang River. Lu Feng's shaggy-haired soldiers were waiting at the dock, looking out to sea. There were so many merchant ships today. Suddenly 2 women ran up from below. The woman chased after a girl who was running in panic. Darlene, Catherine's illness can only be cured by bloodletting. Darlene ran ahead and said, stop talking. I don't agree. Bloodletting basically can't cure the illness. Darlene ran up to the soldier and hurriedly greeted him. Hello, I am the daughter of Merchant Sorrow. Darlene, are you the guard of the Western City? Yes. I am. Before she could finish her sentence, Darlene hurriedly interrupted. Where is the Western City's healer? She looked up with clear blue eyes filled with worry and weakness. My friend is sick. Very sick. He needs to be saved. The soldier bowed and quickly replied. Our city does not have herbalists. We only have doctors. Darlene heard the word doctor for the first time. She quickly asked. Doctor. What is a doctor? The soldier replied. If you are sick, you have to see a doctor. The best doctor in Taeduong City is the city lord. I will contact the city lord now. Quickly bring the patient here. A moment later, in the city lord's mansion, Catherine was lying motionless on the hospital bed. The doctor took the thermometer and observed it for an hour. 39.5 degrees. It will last for a few more days. If this continues, he will become delirious. Darlene looked at Lu Feng worriedly. What should we do? Lu Feng turned around and replied. We can only inject the medicine. She pulled her pants down a bit. We have to inject it into the butt. Darlene was surprised and suddenly blushed, holding her hands out in front of her. She waved them and said, no, this won't do. Catherine is the Duke's daughter. The Duke won't forgive you. Lu Feng's face was blank at this moment. He didn't know how to explain to Darlene. His eyes were doubtful. He looked helplessly at Darlene. Oh my god, this girl. Really? I'm at a loss. Lu Feng said, this is serious treatment. Her condition is quite serious. She needs to be given medicine to recover quickly. Darlene shook her head frantically. No, Catherine was not married. He could not look. Lu Feng tried to keep calm. I think I'll hit you on the head. His face darkened. He held the syringe in his hand and injected it. He said coldly. Tell me. Is human life more important or is dignity more important? Besides, it's just half of her but exposed. To get an injection. You stay here and watch. This isn't as serious as you think. Her condition can't wait any longer. I have to give her an injection. Darlene was sad. Awkward. Catherine was very sick. No idea when she would wake up. Yes. Surely life was more important than reputation. Thinking of this, she nodded in agreement. Okay. But you must not tell anyone else that you have seen Catherine's. In short, you must not say anything. Otherwise, I will tell the Duke. Lu Feng had finished dealing with the obstacle. He held the needle and turned to look at the patient and said to Darlene. I understand. You move out of the way first. Outside the gate of the city lord's mansion, the bodyguards that Catherine brought stood in front of the city gate, talking excitedly. Each of them had a dark face filled with worry. Catherine's illness is so serious that she will definitely not survive. When that time comes, the Duke will punish her. None of us can escape. The bald man standing by the side helplessly blamed Darlene. If the doctor had taken blood on the boat in time, she could have been cured. What kind of doctor did she want to see? The man standing by the side also looked annoyed. Let's make a scene. Push this matter to Shiyang City and Darlene. By then, the Duke's anger will fall on them. Maybe we can avoid this disaster. All four guards said in unison. Good idea. The guards were useless. They rushed into the city gate and were stopped by the guards. A guard standing by said. Didn't I say it before? People without business are not allowed to enter the city lord's mansion. The bald man who was stopped had an annoyed and angry expression on his face. Miss Catherine is in the city lord's mansion. I am her friend. Why don't you let her in? The four of them were making a ruckus in front of the city gate. Their city lord must have killed Miss Katharina, that's why he didn't dare let us in. That's right. Let us see Miss Katharina. Damn it. We are nobles. You guards dare to stop us? The four of them are going too far. Drawing their swords is like protesting. Suddenly, someone behind came up and shouted loudly. Who is it that dares to cause trouble in the city? A powerful voice rang out. Everyone stopped and turned to look. One of them shouted. We are nobles from the royal capital. Our friend Catherine was killed by the Lord of the Western Ocean. I must find him and tell him everything.